needed me to do an update today. So I did an update before I started this feed, and the feed isn't working right. Well, that's strange. Who do you think shut off my camera? Feed was starting to go. I mean, we had multiple likes, 5 viewers, not even 5 minutes in, and somebody shut off my camera. Really interesting, don't you think? I mean, probably just another quinky dink, you know. Those seem to happen a lot. Why going out the country? Where do you wanna go? I love that song. Sure. So the ceasefire is non-existent. And I said this in the previous video. The whole idea of this ceasefire, blah, 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 the last of the hostages and all that. I know for me, I've been asking this entire time, how is Israel basically carpet bombing, knowing that there's hostages sprinkled throughout the area? And it's pretty simple. There's no hostages. There's no real Israeli hostages. That's just like there was no Israelis killed on October 7th. It's all just fake news bullshit. And now there's literally nothing stopping them from carpet bombing. Right? Because now they don't have to protect the lie that there might be hostages there. Now Israel can just do whatever the fuck they want to do. Which is strange too, because, they do have the Hannibal doctrine. Let the dogs in! They do have the Hannibal doctrine, which flat out says if any of them are taken hostage, they need to be killed. Kill them quickly, kill them good with like a good headshot so they feel no pain. But kill your own so they can't be used as bargaining chips. That's what the Hannibal doctrine says. Look it up. Tell me I'm wrong. And I feel like I'm doing nothing anymore but providing you with undeniable evidence. People are, what's your evidence? What's your evidence? And for me, it's important to go, not Alex Jones kind of evidence, but to go with what they want you to know. When they put the story out, well, then the only way it's a conspiracy is because they want it to be. Boy, this is weird. This doesn't feel right. And it's like cut off and shit. It's really weird. We'll give it another couple minutes. But if it doesn't work out, we'll have to reset again. Going up the country, where do you want to go?
What?
Yeah, we know. Yep. Yeah, he's got to go. Sad. But I mean, I just want to know, like, what are you guys distracted by? More than anything, I'd love to be, know what I'm wrong about. I don't understand why it's so difficult. Why is it so difficult to have meaningful conversation, meaningful debate? I'm willing to be wrong. If you can show me what I'm wrong about. Like, you always hear this shit about how, the Palestinians aren't innocent in all this and la da da. Please, by all means, show me some evidence of Palestinians earning what they get. My dumbass neighbor did this. This is what started the rift between, my neighbor and our family. And he's a crazy Jay. Like, he proves the narrative that he's a crazy, cowardly Jay the way that he does things. But I had, I've gotten real good at, like, when neighbors start talking about politics or whatever, I just sort of get out of the conversation. I don't need to have that conversation with somebody close to me, because more than likely they're going to be an asshole about it, right? So when it comes to my neighbor, this dumb bitch is out front one day talking to my wife. And we're out there smoking, and sitting out there smoking. And he comes walking up, and he used to always come walking up, and he'd bring a joint, and the weirdo would, like, bring a joint, and then everybody'd hit it a couple times, and then he'd put it out and walk away. Like, it's just such a weirdo. But he came walking up, and he's talking, and I'm sitting on the steps. My wife is to the left of me. This doofus, bitch ass piece of shit is to the right. And he's talking about how Russia or someone is funding the Palestinians, and the Palestinians attack the Israelis just as much as the Israelis attack the Palestinians. But he was saying something about how they were getting armed by Russia. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, no, I didn't say anything. I just sat there. My wife was like, wow, is that true? I haven't heard that. And she looks down at me and she's like, is that true? And against my best judgment, I was like, no, that's not true. And Bart's like, bro, what do you mean? His name's Bart. What do you mean? And I was like, and I kept trying to say something. Every time I try to say something, he would interrupt, right? Because that's what people do. When they know they're wrong, they don't let you make the point. And he's, Israel's attacked just as much as the Palestinians, blah, blah, and he gets all mad and he runs away. And I'm pointing it out to him. I'm like, dude, look at you, right? Bart the buffoon, Bart the balloon buffoon. He's saying things like, he's just being a dick. And I'm like, dude, why are you getting so angry? Why won't you let me talk? You know you're wrong. That's why, and I'm pointing these things out. And he's like, whatever. Israel attacks Palestine just as much as Palestine attacks Israel. And he tells me, I'll show you, So he runs in the house, and, hours go by. And my wife is back out front later on, like, completely forgot about it. I really didn't think it was that big a deal. It's a disagreement, a political disagreement, right? But he comes up to her and he's like, and this is a perfect example of ad hominem. Ad hominem. He comes up to her and he's like, look, see, there are POWs being held in Ukraine right now. And she's like, yeah, okay. And that was the end. But, it wasn't the end. This doofus kept going. But this guy is saying that Palestine attacks Israel as much as Israel attacks Palestine. And then his proof, because he went in the house and just started scouring the internet, trying to find something that he could show and be like, see? And it took him hours before he was like, you know what, I'll just show this thing then. And because I'm military, I have a soft spot for POWs and all this crazy shit. But that's such an average, that's how that works. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to learn you guys something. because you're going to see it a lot on my feed. You always will. This is called ad hominem, all right? And it's short for argumentum ad hominem. And it refers to several types of arguments that are usually fallacious. Fallacious. Fallacious? Fake. Often, currently, this term refers to a rhetorical strategy where the speaker attack the commenters, the people commenting, attacks the character, motive, or some other attribute of the person making the argument, myself, rather than the substance of the argument itself. Now, just look at my feed. Just look at the comment section. Look at how many people are so quick to do this. They're going to attack me, but not what I'm saying, right? Look at all this crazy shit. Bart probably gets his news from Facebook, the place that caters to your feed, to the stuff you want to see. No, well, Bart is this ugly, short, fat dude, right? And he doesn't have anything good. He doesn't have a good personality. He's not funny. He's not creative. You know, he's nothing. So Bart's thing his whole life was that he's the guy that knows things. You know? He's the guy that reads he wants to be the smartest guy in the room. So Bart's the guy that watches news all the time and looks through stuff, so he can, whenever he can interject, because he doesn't care. He's not the type that cares about what you're saying. If you're in a conversation with Bart, it's because he's talking and you're listening. As soon as you start talking about something, he's just like, he doesn't care. He's a real big piece of shit. Beef, what's happening? What's today's topic? It's always the same topic, right? It's always the same topic. How do we stop and how do we remove these J's and live a better life? Just that simple. So Bart's that guy that he's very intimidated by someone like me. Tall, skinny, decent looking, who's also smart, funny. So when you know, Bart's leg up on me is that he's supposed to be the smart guy. He's supposed to be the guy that you could ask, blah, blah, blah. So when that narrative is challenged, he can't handle it. He doesn't have anything else to bring to the table. No. The foundation of the argument is always the same. The foundation of this feed is always the same. Look at all of these dumb comments. So again, often currently this term refers to a rhetorical strategy where the commenters attack the character, motive, or some other attribute of the person making the argument rather than the substance of the argument itself, me, right? This avoids genuine debate, creating a diversion, often using a totally irrelevant but often highly charged attribute of the opponent's character or background. The most common form of this fallacy is person A, me, makes a claim of fact, to which person B, the commenters and whatnot, asserts that person A has a personality trait, quality, or physical attribute that is repugnant, thereby going off topic, and hence B, the commenters, conclude A, me, has their fact wrong without ever addressing the point of the debate. Now this is actually like, they don't even do that. Like they don't even, they do that thing to a fucking T where they literally refuse to address anything I'm talking about.
What?
A common misconception is that an ad hominem attack
You get it?
is synonymous with an insult, right? And I absolutely don't think so. I think of it as a good thing. Anytime somebody comes on here in this aggressive, you know, it's one thing if you're new and you just sort of say something. But especially when you've been here for a really long time, multiple parts of my series here, you know what I'm going to talk about. I tell you the night before, I tell you the day before, go research this, go research that. And you still come through here with this nonsense? I don't see it as an attack. Every time you address anything other than what I'm talking about, you're basically saying, well, you're right about the thing you're talking about, but you're stupid, so, nah. Like, that's all you're doing is telling me I'm right over and over and over again. Like, it's just wild. It's wild. Look at all these, I'm never here to debate, I'm here to absorb. Well, no, you should always be here to debate. If I get something wrong, then by all means, tell me. You just know I'm not getting shit wrong. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Jesus Christ. It's so stupid. But it's exactly what it has to be. You know, it has to be this way because what can they fucking say? What can they say? How is anyone going to deny anything I'm saying or back up anything Israel? I do want to look up something real quick because I was thinking about it, and the River Thames, you know, in Europe, it's the first river to have a tunnel that goes underneath it. You know, hand-built tunnel that goes underneath it. A man-built tunnel that goes underneath it. By the way, if you're watching, don't forget to like, share, and sub. But you see this story where the guy that did it, Dobbs, his last name was Dobb. His son became Dobbs because his son added the S. But Dobbs said he was inspired to make this tunnel based on underwater mining, right? So I want to look up underwater mining. I just want to see what the history of it is. So it's called seabed mining, also known as seafloor mining, is the recovery of minerals from the seabed by techniques of underwater mining. The concept includes mining at shallow depths on the continental shelf and deep sea mining at greater depths associated with tectonic activity, hydrothermal vents, and the abyssal plains. The increased requirement for minerals and metals used in the technology sector has led to a renewed interest in the mining of seabed mineral sources, including massive polymetallic sulfide, which is red, so I can't read it, deposits around hydrothermal vents, cobalt-rich crusts on the sides of seamounts, and fields of manganese nodules on the abyssal plains. While the seabed provides a high concentration of valuable minerals, there is an unknown risk of ecological damage on marine species because of the lack of data. Yet we keep doing it. Oh, really? I can't find any. There's no history on this? That's really fucking weird. Let's go undersea mining. Deep sea mining. This is deep sea mining. Let's see, the extraction of blah, blah, blah. Economic perspective. History. Let's look at the history of oh, wow. So it's going to start with 1960s.
That's when the world started, right?
But you were here when I read it. When they were doing the tunnel for the River Thames, the guy said he was inspired by underwater mining techniques, didn't he?
Yes.
In the 1960s, the prospect of deep-sea mining was assessed in J.L. Merrow's Mineral Resources of the Sea. Nations including France, Germany, and the United States dispatched research vessels in search of deposits. Initial estimates of DSM viability were exaggerated. Deep sea mining. Depressed metal prices led to the near abandonment of nodule mining by 1982. From the 60s to 1984, an estimated US 650 million was spent on the venture with little to no return. I mean, this is just weird. A 2018 article argued that the new global gold rush of deep sea mining shares many features with past resource scrambles, including a general disregard for environmental and social impacts and the marginalization of indigenous peoples and their rights. Huh. What a surprise. Gee, I wonder who was leading the charge as far as those companies doing the deep sea mining, not giving a shit about indigenous people and their rights. I wonder who it was. What about all the toxic nuclear waste that's been dumped in the sea? What about it? It's fucking awful. What's sea mining got to do with anything? Well, sometimes we have to, we have to dig a little deeper, don't you think? So it basically goes from that to the 2000s. In 2001, China Ocean Mineral Resources Research and Development Association, COMRA, received China's first exploration license. Okay, so River Thames Tunnel. The Thames Tunnel. Okay. The Thames Tunnel is a tunnel beneath the River Thames in London, connecting Rotherhithe and Wapping. It measures 35 feet wide by 20 feet high and is 1,300 feet long. Running at a depth of 75 feet below the surface, measured at high tide. It is the first tunnel known to have been constructed successfully underneath a navigable river. It was built between 1825 and 1843 by Mark Brunel and his son Islamabad. No. Using the tunneling shield newly invented by Elder Brunel and Thomas Cochrane. I guess Dobb was the son. So here we go. At the start of the 19th century, that's the 1800s, there was a pressing need for a new land connection between north and south banks of the Thames to link the expanding docks on each side of the river. The engineer Ralph Dodd, see, that's where I got mixed up. Ralph Dodd tried but failed to build a tunnel between Gravesend and Tilbury in 1799. I mean, this is just dumb, right? This is just dumb. Here, let's keep going. By 1805, or between 1805 and 1809, a group of Cornish miners, including Richard Trevithick, tried to dig a tunnel further upriver between Rotherhithe and Wapping Limehouse, but failed because of the difficult conditions of the ground. Don't worry, a few years later, those conditions won't be as difficult. The Cornish miners were used to hard rock and did not modify their methods for soft clay and quicksand. These guys, I mean, these miners, I mean, it's pretty interesting. This Thames Archway project was abandoned after the initial pilot tunnel, a driftway, flooded twice when 1,000 feet of a total 1,200 feet had been dug. It only measured 2 to 3 feet by 5 feet and was intended as a drain for a larger tunnel for passenger use. How do they build the 2-foot tunnel anyway? 2 feet by 5 feet. How do you even do that? What, 700 feet in, what are you doing to facilitate that? How does this all tie in with the usual agenda? Well, it's a great example of, because people don't believe that the winners write the history. Right? And if you start to realize that the narratives that you've been given regarding lots of things you've never bothered to think about, that narrative doesn't make any sense, well, then maybe you're going to be more accepting, more accommodating of the current arguments. Because, so many people believe that, like, if this was this big conspiracy, it would have been exposed and blah, blah, blah. But if you're not, if you're just like, yeah, fuck yeah, they could build tunnels 1,100, 1,200 feet long, 75 feet beneath a river. Why wouldn't they be able to? How would you even go about doing that? If I gave you a shovel and a pickaxe, and I was like, all right, build me a tunnel underneath the fucking, the river behind our house, the Rouge River, just right over there. It's only like a couple feet deep. Build me a tunnel underneath it. How long do you think it would take you? How would you go about doing it? To me, this is one of those things where it's just, the evidence is all around us. We're being lied to on every level. I'm sure they use slaves. I love how people just accept this idea that somehow slaves are not only skilled craftsmen, they happen to know how to do whatever you want them to do. Back in the day, they could do it beautifully. They did everything with this artistic flair that's not seen today, and it's because it was slaves. But it's strange how you let your arrogance drive you, right? Oh, I'm sure they just use slaves. Based on what? There's no account of it. Yeah, they don't talk about slave labor. And it's weird because, again, it's like, just listen for a minute. Right? His wife's tunnel is 2 foot by 5 foot. Are you kidding me? Her shit's like a hot dog in a hallway, baby. I literally climb in there when I'm cold. She walks around carrying me inside her vagina. Because it's just a huge, giant, gaping hole. It only measures blah, 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 blah. The failure of the Thames Archway project led engineers to conclude that an underground tunnel is impractical. The Anglo-French engineer, Marc Brunel, refused to accept this conclusion. In 1814, think about the world you think 1814 was. Not the Tartaria-esque world, but the world we're told existed. Yeah. Here, look at all the stupid shit. Now think about it. Think about it. Why, if I'm not talking about the Jays and I'm not talking about, why aren't these people, all these super knowledgeable tunnel building people, why don't they say something? Why don't they tell me what I'm getting wrong? In 1814, he proposed to Emperor Alexander I of Russia a plan to build a tunnel underneath the Neva River in St. Petersburg. Isn't that weird how in 1814, Emperor Alexander I was there? They didn't have an Alexander prior to the 1814s? Just strange considering how popular Alexander is, especially in the Russian communities. But if he's the first emperor since the reset, well, that might make sense, huh? This scheme was turned down. A bridge was built instead. And Brunel continued to develop his ideas for new methods of tunneling. Brunel patented the tunneling shield, a revolutionary device, a revolutionary advance in tunneling technology in January of 1818. In 1823, Brunel produced a plan for a tunnel between Rotherhithe and Rapping, which would be dug using his new shield. Financing was soon found from private investors, including the Duke of Wellington, and the Thames Tunnel Company was formed in 1824. The project beginning in February 1825. February! They started digging in February. And it's not like it's a tropical area. We're talking about a place where there's snow. The first step was construction of a large shaft on the south bank of Rotherhithe, 150 feet back from the riverbank. 150 feet back from the riverbank. Which, by the way, the river had been completely tamed by this point, right? It was concrete breaking walls all along the river somehow. We don't ever really talk about that part. That's funny. It was dug by assembling an iron ring 50 feet in diameter above ground. You know, because there was all those iron works back then. And they could transport all of the iron from the iron works to this place with their horses. Right? But no, you think that's real, right? You think that's real, right? A brick wall 40 feet high, god damn it, 40 feet high and 3 feet thick was built on top of this, with a powerful steam engine surmounting it to drive the excavation's pumps. You know, all those water pumps they had back in 1825. Think about that too. So a company was founded, the Thames Tunnel Company. Well, why would you call your company the Thames Tunnel Company? That's literally, you get one tunnel done and then your company needs to change its name. That doesn't seem very smart. That's not very smart. It's smart. The whole apparatus, listen to this. The whole apparatus was estimated to weigh 1,000 long tons. Now, a long ton is a unit of measure equal to 2,240 pounds. So it's not just a regular ton of 2,000 pounds. Add an additional 2,240 pounds to it. Which you would think, like, why wouldn't you just say, instead of 1,000 long tons, why wouldn't you say like 1,500 tons? Wouldn't that make more sense? Now we got to use a word that nobody's ever heard. Long tons? You ever heard that before? But this thing weighed 1,000 long tons. That's like 25,000 pounds. And it was movable. The soil below the ring's sharp lower edge was removed manually by Brunel's workers. The whole shaft thus gradually sunk under its own weight, slicing through the soft ground like a pastry cutter. Are you fucking kidding me? The shaft became stuck at one point during its sinking. See, this is the stuff that I always love about these book report narratives that they give us, right? Because what they're going to do is give us a bunch of details about nothing. You know, individual little, the thing got stuck one time, so they had to do this. Like, it only got stuck once? But see, when they give you a bunch of nonsense details, you walk away from it thinking you got details. It must be true because of all the details they gave us. And this is an Israeli trick. This is a J trick, as far back as it goes. They don't give you the details as to how, why. It's all ad hominem, really. Because you're not going to find out, how did they figure out the exact size to build? How did they, what experiments did they use? Apparently, back then, every time they did shit, they got it right. Except the first couple that failed. But they got it right. Why aren't people telling me what I'm getting wrong here? Why are people so obsessed with me and not the big picture? As I say to you guys all the time, if I smoked all the meth, ate all the crack, drank all the alcohol, beat my wife, beat my children, kicked my dogs and cats, I was the worst person in the world. Does that make any of this more true or less, less fucking stupid? Does anything I do outweigh the genocide that's happening right now? No is the answer. But the shaft became stuck at one point as the pressure of the earth around it held it firmly in position. Extra weight was required to make it continue its descent. 50,000 bricks were added as temporary weights. Who's making bricks back then? Go ahead, look it up. Go try to find the history of bricks. Go try to find, how they producing 50,000 bricks. Imagine the energy that would require, because you have to fire the bricks to make them hard, right? You have to create them, then you have to put them in the kiln to make them extra hard. You can't just let them dry normally. So somebody made 50,000 bricks and then transported it to this place? How do you transport 50,000 bricks? Think about this shit. I mean, it's crazy to think, look at these dumb comments. What's the point? Don't start on 9/11. Why? What are my thoughts on 9/11? It's obvious. Mossad did it. I mean, look. All you have to know about when it comes to 9/11 is the dancing Israelis. If you're not aware of the dancing Israelis, I suggest you look it up, because what you're going to find is shit like Snopes saying the dancing Israelis is mostly false. They can't say it's false because it's not false. But basically, on 9/11, a group of Israelis set up a tripod and a camera before the first plane hit and filmed the first plane hitting. They then celebrated, dancing, high-fiving, having a good time. And a woman called the police. Hey, there's some guys out there filming the towers, and I don't know, they seem to be really happy, blah, blah, blah. Second tower hits. Or the second tower's hit. They filming it, celebrating again. The woman calls again. Can somebody come do something about this? This is kind of weird. Police then end up showing up. They arrest those guys. And there was another group of Israelis that were found driving a U-Haul truck that had a picture of the towers getting hit on the side of it. They were arrested, seemingly putting explosives on the Brooklyn Bridge, setting up the explosion on the Brooklyn Bridge. They were all arrested. And then I don't know if you guys remember this, if you were there, but the U.S. downed all planes. Remember that? It's the strangest thing. Every plane was down. No one was allowed to fly. Well, except for the bin Ladens, who happened to be having lunch or breakfast with Cheney that morning. They were allowed to go home. And the Israelis were shipped home. Where, it was found out that they were Mossad agents. and they were shipped home. Later on, they went on TV, on Israeli TV, and laughed about it, bragged about it.
Dad, super doesn't work.
Huh?
Super doesn't work.
That sucks. Swear to God, the Nintendo Switch is such a shitty product. Such a shitty fucking product. But just you know, I'm all about smoking guns, right? There's always so much to look at that you can often find yourself confused or overwhelmed. So to me, what you should focus on is those smoking gun things. Those things that are undeniable, and then they also inspire you to look more because you know you this is right. And smoking guns to me are things like Team Jorge, which the name in itself is deception. Because if I said it was Jorge, the last person you would think it would be a J. You'd think it was a Latino of some sort, right? Another one of those smoking guns is the Samson Option, which is their strategy that says they will nuke the fucking world should Israel ever be invaded and or destroyed. They'll send their nukes in every direction, even though they deny having, well, they don't deny it. We claim we don't know whether Israel has nukes or not. Another one that I just learned about was Operation Cast Thy Bread. Right? This conspiracy theory that Jays poison drinking water wells has persisted, has followed them throughout the entire narrative, supposedly. Now, again, what that narrative is, how true that narrative is, how old that narrative is, that's up for debate. But if you say Jays poison wells, drinking water wells, that's some sort of, oh, you can't say that. That's anti blah, 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 you know. Yet, Operation Cast Thy Bread is literally the Jays poisoning the water systems, poisoning the wells of the people of Israel, the people of Palestine, and the surrounding areas, especially a city called Acre, prior to the takeover, prior to the formation of Israel. They weakened the people because they were so small. They were such a small number. I mean, again, how does Israel establish a country when Israel doesn't exist? How do Israelis do anything when there is no Israel? But then you learn about things like the Palestine partition plan that the UN created in 1947. Again, a year before the Nakba took place, where the solution to all of the problems was give the Jays 56.88, 57% of the land, while giving the people that live there already 46%. Like that, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy. And I so encourage you to go look at that. I'm trying to give you guys other things, other topics, but at the end of the day, it's always just going to keep coming back to this. Because it's insane. It's literally insane to think how this shit works. Oh, so this is supposedly an illustration of what the tunnel looks like. Rothy, what? You should study, or you should sub. Everybody should like, share, and sub. So this is a picture here. And it said the Thames Tunnel excavation as it was, probably around 1840. What would you mean probably around? Underground route and approaches highlight to the Thames Tunnel. Oh, so here we go. That the tunnel underneath the Thames is actually that big. The Thames, it's the Thames, sorry. I seemingly haven't read all this, I guess. The shaft became oh, we did that. Blah blah blah. It was realized that the problem was caused because the shaft sides were parallel. Years later, when the wrapping shaft was built, it was slightly wider at the bottom than the top. This non-cylindrical tapering design ensured it did not get stuck. By November 1825, the Rotherhithe shaft was in place and tunneling work could begin. This is a model of what that looked like. 50,000 bricks and bullshit. The tunneling shield, built by Henry Maudsley's Lambeth Works and assembled in the Rotherhithe shaft, was the key to Brunel's construction of the Thames Tunnel. The Illustrated London News described how it works. The mode in which this great excavation was accomplished was by means of a powerful apparatus termed a shield, consisting of 12 great frames lying close to each other, like as many volumes on a shelf of a bookcase, and divided into 3 stages or stories, thus presenting 36 chambers of cells. The 36 chambers! I wonder if that has anything to do with the woo. Well, these tunnels are to you know, this is actually a passenger tunnel, I believe, but it makes sense. But the tunnel is probably much older than we're getting told. Undoubtedly, it's much older. They found the tunnel. 36 chambers of cells, each for one workman, and open to the rear, but closed in the front with movable boards. The front was placed against the earth to be removed, and the workmen, having removed one board, excavated the earth behind it to the depth directed, and placed the board against the new surface exposed. The board was then in advance of the cell, and was kept in its place by props. And having thus proceeded with all the boards, each cell was advanced by 2 screws, one at its head and the other at its foot, which, resting against the finished brickwork and turned, impelled it forward into the vacant space. The other set of divisions then advanced. As the miners worked at one end of the cell, so the bricklayers formed at the other, the top, sides and bottom. Formed at the other, the top, sides, and bottom. Like, to think, like, you know, anytime there's any sort of weird mistakes in here and shit like that, you have to ask why. Why aren't they more precise with any of this? You know, you want me to believe these narratives, they should be right. Each of the 12 frames of the shield weighed over 7 long tons. So that's probably like 18,000 pounds. Each of the frames made about, yeah. Each of the 12 frames. So what's 12 times 18? Well, what's 12 times 20? That's 240. So 240 tons? Or no, 240,000 pounds. Yeah, that's what it is. However, many workers, including Brunel himself, soon fell ill from poor conditions caused by filthy sewage-laden water seeping through from the river above. How?
it was seeping through, then the thing's gonna collapse.
Then it's going to collapse, right? Have you ever been to the beach and thought, hey, I'm going to build a hole in the beach? We've all tried to dig tunnels. Yeah. Digging tunnels at the beach. Literally, you get about a foot down, and a lot of times if you're close enough to the water, if you dig like a foot or two down, you actually find water. I always thought that was strange, right? Like this, there's water only a foot down underneath the fucking... How does that happen? But to think that, I mean, the Thames was full of sewage because apparently back in the day, we were capable of building everything amazing buildings that still stand to this day. We're building tunnels under rivers, you know? We're doing so many insane things, and yet nobody was like, hey, let's build a toilet. Let's build some plumbing. Instead, they were just dumping shit into the Thames River. Thames River. Sorry, I keep saying Thames. Thames River. Think about that shit. Think about how just unbelievable that is. You know? And this is all you say, well, what's the connect? This is all J fucking nonsense. It's the J's who program ChatGPT to write these narratives. That's why they're always so similar. That's why they have the same names are used throughout. That's why if you go far enough back, it seems like it's like a sieve, you know, it's like a funnel. And the farther you go back, the closer it is, the more you start running into the same old characters. It's like strange, you know. Okay. We'll just accept that Peru and Machu Picchu and all that. We just don't know how they built it. And that's the end of the story. How'd they build Machu Picchu? We don't know. Okay, cool, yeah. But we know the history, right? These were savages that needed to be tamed by the white man. Imagine if that same white man wouldn't have been a racist piece of shit and would have just worked with those people capable of building incredible things that we weren't. I think it's always interesting how we're told that all these natives, the religion that just formed organically, I'm sure, told them that if a white man comes from the east, he's a god. Swim out to the water, swim out to the boat, bring him gifts and all that. That's what our narrative tells us. The Rothschilds are the key to everything. To some degree, yeah, right now. And really, you know, who do you think is behind the narrative, right? I mean, the Rothschilds are... It's funny how every time you see, like, richest people in the world, Jeff Bezos and the Waltons and all these people, the Rothschilds aren't on the top of that list. They're not even on the list. The Rockefellers aren't on that list. The, what are some of the other ones? The Carnegies aren't on that list. So these were the richest people in the world in the like 1900s. But then they what? Just gave it all up? It's the same thing as Hollywood, right? Hollywood is controlled exclusively and violently by the Jays. It's created by, literally, they created Hollywood. They bought up all the land and they had all the studios just magically built. They literally controlled every fucking aspect of it. And are we to think that they just, what, gave that up? Yeah, we had a good run. Now it's time to let the Goyim have their turn. Is that why? I mean, when was the last time you saw a Jay bad guy in a movie? Cohen, Warburg, Bacon. Yeah, you're right. There's some. See, it's funny. Why is somebody telling this person to be quiet? To shut up? Why would anyone other than piece of shit Jays not want us talking about this stuff? How would this affect your average person's everyday life? Your guy that works at McDonald's, he's going to care that we're talking about this? No. So who is who are these bot profiles? Who's behind these profiles of these people that come here to talk shit? Who's going to talk shit about this? Are there any non-Jays out there who think that we shouldn't talk about the Jays, we shouldn't expose anything, genocide's okay, the pedo stuff is all okay, everything is okay because the Jays say so? Who fucking does this, right? This sewage gave off methane gas, which was ignited by the miners' oil lamps. Right, again, 500 feet below the fucking water, I'm sure it's really easy to see. Oh, wait, they have lamps. But again, the tunnel's full of methane gas. So how does that even work?
Well, they put canaries down there to make sure they can breathe and they don't die.
When the resident engineer John Armstrong fell ill in April 1826, Mark's son Islamabad Kingdom Brunel took over at the age of 20. Fuck yeah. He's the guy that they don't know how he got all of his education, but they just say, well, his dad was really into it, so he must have just picked it up along the way. At 20 years old, this guy takes over the construction project for the world's first under-river tunnel. Gotcha. Work was slow, progressing at only 1 to 8 feet a week. To earn income from the tunnel, the company directors allowed sightseers to view the shield in operation. They charged a shilling for the adventure, and an estimated 600 to 800 visitors took advantage of the opportunity every day. Every day, all of these people would come from, they'd catch a horse cab from wherever they were to come pay a shilling to go walk in this construction. Like, how many times have you ever heard about that? Yeah, the new construction project. They want people walking through it. Seems like that would be pretty dangerous. Humans are inherently good, but add money and the power, I don't think we'll ever get it right. No, that's not it. Humans are inherently good. But it's the Jays controlling things that make everything so hard. They make everything so hard, and then what they give you is bullshit. You're supposed to believe in some fucking stupid Jesus bullshit? Come on. How does anybody believe in that bullshit after COVID? How do you still fall for it? When the churches all closed their doors and all these people were supposedly dying, I guess Jesus wasn't protecting them, right? 600 to 800 visitors a day. Day after day for years. Where did all these people come from? People doing it multiple. Oh, yeah, I went there 2 days ago. It was awesome, so I'm going to go back today. Pay a shilling. The excavation was hazardous. The tunnel flooded suddenly on May 8th, 1827, after 549 feet had been dug. So if the tunnel floods, how is there still a tunnel? I mean, to think that it's deep below the ground and there's water and sewage leaking into it from the top, so then it floods. How is that not the end of the fucking journey? Islamabad Kingdom, his name is Islamabad Kingdom Brunel, lowered a diving bell from a boat to repair the hole at the bottom of the river. Are you fucking kidding me? Come on. He's 75 feet down in the Thames River, which isn't like known for its crystal clear water and full of sewage. And yet he lowered a diving bell down to fix the hole? How? How did they even know where to do it? Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, steps in. Okay, so you up above. Like, how were they even communicating where the hole was to the boat up above that then lowers a diving bell? And what? He opens the hatch on the bottom of the bell so he can work? Is that another one of these stories? This is 1827. He to repair the hole at the bottom of the river, throwing bags filled with clay into the breach in the tunnel's roof.
What?
So I thought it was pretty crazy when they said that they had this submarine in the 50s that could go down in the water 150 feet down and open the hatch on the bottom to harvest oysters and shit. But that was in 1850. We're now talking about 1827. The diving bell, let's see. But diving bell is one of the earliest types of equipment for underwater work and exploration. It was first described by Aristotle in in the 4th century BC. So minus 300. Yeah, well, minus 3 or 400 BC. Gotcha. They enable the diver to respire equally well by letting down a cauldron, for this does not fill with water, but retains the air, for it is forced straight down into the water. I mean, do you understand that, like, even the slightest little, like, it'd have to be recurring legends about Alexander the Great, including some versions of Alexander romance, tell he explored the sea in some closed vessel lowered from his ships. So Alexander the Great, the big fucking leader that he was, the important guy that he was, himself was going down in these diving bells? They were that fucking safe?
Well, he was a badass.
What sense does that make?
He wasn't scared. He was a badass.
Their origin is hard to determine. People took notes about everything, especially the Jays. They took notes about everything that they needed to fucking, well, they didn't take it. They remembered everything and then told it through stories, because Jay tradition is oral tradition. But yet, the diving bell, why bother? It's hard to determine, but some of the earliest dated works are from the early Middle Ages. Well, the first submarine was said to be built in 1560 by Cornelius Drebbel. Is it 1620? I can't remember. 1620. By Cornelius Drebbel, a guy who was said to be able to make it thunder and lightning on command. In 1535, Guglielmo, I don't know. Guglielmo, that's something like that. Guglielmo de Lorena created and tested his own diving bell to explore a sunken vessel in a lake near Rome. Yeah. He just made his own diving bell because he probably got a really good education from the universities and shit he went to back then. De Lorna's diving bell had only space enough for enough oxygen for a few minutes. However, the air in his diving bell was reported to last for 1 to 2 hours. Huh. I mean, when you think about it, and it's supposed to only be a few minutes, but it's 1 to 2 hours. I mean, yeah, 1 to 2 hours, but that's 60 minutes each hour. That's a lot. That's a lot of variables. It looks like a wooden Zeppelin. It does, doesn't it? 1620. If you want to go for a ride, spend your day looking up Cornelius Drebbel. Well, not spend your day. Spend about a half hour looking up Cornelius Drebbel. And see how much that fucking blows your mind. They use snorkels, yeah, supposedly. Well, no, because this thing went like 30 feet below the water surface, I think they said. 30 feet below the surface. And this was a submarine. This wasn't a diving bell, which was connected to a boat at the top. This is all by itself. It's a lone submarine, a self-contained unit that somehow made air. I mean, even if you look at the snorkel design, it goes up and then it curves over. And it sticks out of the water like a few feet. Well, you'd think any fucking wave could really fuck that up for you. And there would constantly be water splashing up into that snorkel. It's just stupid. Reported to last 1 to 2 hours, with the limiting factor being the diver's ability to withstand cold and fatigue, not lack of oxygen. Right, because the fatigue must be immense. The mechanism he used needed to keep the pressure inside the bell continuous, supply fresh air, and remove air exhaled by the diver. To accomplish this, it is believed that De Lorna used a method similar to what would later be Edmund Halley's 1691 design. Is Edmund Halley Halley's Comet? In 1616, Franz Kessler designed an improved diving bell. I mean, just think about this. How did anyone other than a few hundred people in the area that know about this diving bell? How would somebody in Germany know about the Roman diving bell? Improved design, an improved diving bell, making the bell reach the diver's ankles, and adding windows and a ballast to the bottom. Making windows. 1616, they could make windows made of glass that was strong enough to hold the pressure of being underwater. Gotcha. This design no longer needed to be tethered to the surface, but it is unclear whether or not it was actually built. Well, if it didn't need to be tethered to the surface, how did they get their air, their pressure? I mean, they love to sort of overlook this idea that the deeper you go, the more pressure there is. Have you ever been in a super deep pool, like a 30-foot deep pool or whatever?
Yes.
Try to swim down to the bottom of it. Your head feels like it's going to implode. The pressure is immense at like 15, 20 feet. So not only does it have to be able to withstand the pressure, but it has to be able to withstand, like, the pressure inside has to adjust as it goes deeper. You can't have the same pressure pushing on the inside, pushing out at the top of the water as you do at the bottom. It's going to break your thing. So stupid, to be honest. There you go. Have you seen the guy who was using a PlayStation remote to control his sub or something? I don't believe any of that bullshit. It's all just stupid. Snorkels never worked well for me in the pool. I always choked. Every fucking time.
Every time.
Every fucking
I
time.
watch these people on these shows using snorkels like professionals, and it amazes me.
Every fucking time.
I cannot do it. I'm not that coordinated, I guess, which is crazy.
Well, even if you're like swimming
and
and you have it connected to your mask,
yeah,
you can't, like, if you move your head even a little bit to look at something,
water
you get
goes
water
in.
in there.
What the fuck?
You have to release air in the way down. No. But that's the other thing. How do you get, like, okay, so I always use this example because we've all probably done something similar. Take a 2-liter, an empty 2-liter, and put the lid on it. And see how far you can swim that 2-liter down to the bottom. I think even if you're standing at the beach and you're holding, you're up neck high in water and you try to take that 2-liter and push it down, it's almost impossible. Even if you say, oh, well, I'll put a quarter of the thing full of water, it might sink a little bit. But the lower you go, the more that shit wants to come to the surface. So how do you have a pressurized vessel that goes down? How do you make it go down in the first place? I know for me, like humans, if you want to sit at the bottom of the pool, what do? You can't hold your breath and sit at the bottom of the pool. You can only sit at the bottom of the pool unless you happen to be one of those people with like super dense bones, I guess. But you can only sit at the bottom of the pool when you exhale a bunch of your air. And then you can only stare for a couple of seconds. So how do you push an enclosed vessel, especially one that we're talking about as big as 80 school buses, the modern day submarines? How do you push that thing down in the water? Especially since it's pressurized on the inside. Literally, it has more air than the space it takes up, right? That's what pressurized means. They put more air in it than what's already in it. Right? Like that, I mean, think about this. Whatever. In 1642, John Winthrop reported one Edward Bendall building two large... What am I reading here? In 1642, John Winthrop reported one Edward Bendall building two large wooden barrels. Building two large wooden barrels weighed with lead and open at their bottoms to salvage a ship, Mary Rose, which had exploded and sunk, blocking the harbor of Charleston, Boston. Bendall undertook the work on condition that he would be awarded all the value of the salvage should he succeed in unblocking the harbor, or half the value he salvaged if he could not. Well, how could you get half of it if you weren't able to do it? Oh, so we're not going to find out anything about that. That's the end of that piece. We're not going to find out whether he did or not. Because we just jumped to 1658. In 1658, Albrecht von Treblin was permitted to salvage the warship Vasa, which sank in Stockholm harbor on its maiden voyage in 1628. Between 1633 and 1605, von Treblin's divers were successful in raising most of the cannon working from a diving bell. A diving bell is mentioned in the 1663 Ballad of Gresham College, stanza 16. A wondrous engine is contriving, in form 'tis said much like a bell, most useful for the art of diving, if hit, 'twill prove a miracle. Get it? It rhymes with bell. For gentlemen, is no, it's just apostrophe t, is no smaller matter to make a man breathe underwater. For gentlemen, 'tis no, it's not 'tis because it's apostrophe t, then space is. So is no small matter to make a man breathe underwater. When you think about 1663, do you think about them as being this advanced civilization that it wouldn't be a problem for them to have a man breathe underwater? Boy, we sure are getting shut down today, aren't we, boys and girls? I almost want to reset. But we're in such a good place. How about you guys just like, share, and sub? Override. You need to override this, the censorship. Take 2 seconds to share this feed on Facebook. Literally, I am reading what they want us to read. Ballast tanks are used to sink the vessel, apparently. Yeah, because that makes sense, doesn't it? So you have these tanks on a submarine that you fill with water. And let's say you have a submarine, again, let's just say this is your submarine, right? Can you hold this, please? Right here. This is your submarine. If you have a ballast tank on here like this, or on the bottom like this, if this fills with water, it's not going to pull this whole thing that's fucking pressurized air down. That's not how that works. This bleeds into the submarine conversation, but literally, think about what they're telling you. Think about what you have to believe the narrative. You guys have to believe this shit. There's no ifs and buts about it. If you believe we went to the moon, if you believe Trump beat Kamala, if you believe in COVID, if you believe in fucking you name it, whatever it is, you believe in God, you have to believe this shit too. You have to. You don't get a choice. You don't get to be this arrogant fuck that decides what parts of history you're going to believe over what parts you're not. This is all the same history given to us by the same people. So you either believe it all or you don't believe any of it. That's how this works. You're not that good. You don't have any knowledge that they don't want you to have. Like, you don't have any knowledge other than what they've given us. Everything you know is what's given to us. In late 1868, Sir William Phipps convinced investors to fund an expedition to what is now Haiti and the Dominican Republic to find sunken treasure, despite the location of the shipwreck being based entirely on rumor and speculation. In January 1687, Phipps found the wreck of the Spanish galleon Nuestra Señora de la Concepción. That's a fucking name for a boat. It was all. This guy found it within a year. Fuck yeah. Off the coast of Santo Domingo. Some sources say they used an inverted container for the salvage operation, while others say the crew was assisted by Indian divers in the shallow waters. Right? Because, you know, those Indians were probably like, fuck yeah, how can we help you guys? You've been nothing but good to us. Some sources, that was the shortest. Nausea, heartburn, and headache. Is that it?
No.
That's crazy.
No, that's not it.
The operation lasted from February to April 1687. February, March, April. 3 months. Within 3 months, they managed to find the rumored ship and salvage it in 1687. During which time they salvaged jewels, some gold, and 30 tons of silver, which at the time was worth over 200,000 pounds. In 1687, so that would be like a gajillion dollars today. I mean, notice I'm sitting here, so we've gone 1635 was the first one. 1616, 1642, 1658, 1620, 1663, 1665, 1686, now we're on 1689. The 1600s were a booming time for exploring underwater. Using all these methods that nobody bothered to write down. Everybody was capable of doing it, but nobody knows how anyone did it. Makes total sense. Yep. The only fact, they are in fact real, Mr. Crackhead. Yep. That must be it, because I'm just sitting here making up a whole bunch of shit. You know? Like, I try to think about it from your dumbass perspective, right? And how fucking difficult and frustrating it must be to just consistently be so stupid. You so badly want to find something. You want me to be guilty. You want me to be wrong about. You want something so badly.
Yeah, look, I'm a plug. That's safe for kids. Show them plugs. Like,
Right? Just think about how crazy this is. Like, it's not even up to me at this point. I'm reading you the history. You get to choose whether you believe it or not.
Did everybody get that?
I don't know.
Or just the people that don't have a clear well?
No, she's got them in her hand. You get to choose this. That's the best part about this. Malice. There's no way they're real. The pressure from the water would collapse them. You guys know how much pressure that water is? Exactly. But even more so, again, think about it. They say that the reason they don't collapse is because of the pressure. Well, that pressure on the outside changes. You know, every 10 feet you go down, every foot you go down, that pressure changes. So the pressure between 40 feet below and 60 feet below is different. So we're supposed to believe that submarines are traveling all through the water, swimming like whales, and the inside pressure is just adjusted and you know, stepped up and pulled back as they need it to be in real time. Not to mention it's not like they're you know, if you were going to release the pressure, then you would have to let air bubbles out. And that would show your location, wouldn't it? In 1689, what's going to be funny here is we're reading this history. It's going to be all about the 1600s, bam, 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 bam. And then we'll yada, yada to like 1950. In 1689, Denis Pepin, Jacques Pepin's great, blah, blah, suggested that the pressure and fresh air inside a diving bell could be maintained by a force pump or bellows. Engineer John Smeaton utilized this concept in 1789, just 100 years later. So again, we're supposed to believe that this random suggestion made by Denis Pepin was written down and then kept in the annals of history forever so that I could read it into it. But then 100 years later, John Smeaton was like, hey, that Denis Pepin guy from 100 years ago, fuck yeah. In 1691, Dr. Edmund Halley completed his plans for a diving bell capable of remaining submerged for extended periods of time and fitted it with a window for the purpose of undersea exploration. In Halley's design, atmosphere is replenished by sending weighted barrels of air down from the surface. Oh my God. Did you just hear what I said?
Makes no sense.
Atmosphere is replenished by sending weighted barrels of air down from the surface. So then he what? Opens the door and takes the barrel, closes the door, empties the barrel out, then opens the door and... What?
Makes perfect sense.
Hey, I'm running low on air. Send me down some barrels.
Sticks his face over the opening. Breathes.
Okay, so here we go. Now, so that was 1691, right? Now we're going to jump to 1775 because there was no advancements in diving bell technology in the 1700s till 1775. Charles Spalding, tell me that's the Spalding guy. Oh no. Charles Spalding was an Edinburgh confectioner and amateur engineer who made improvements to the diving bell. He died while diving to the wreck of the Bellegisio in Dublin Bay using a diving bell of his own design. So it wasn't a very good design. I mean, like, think about this. This is a failure. Who was keeping track of the failures as like as part of our historical record here? So this is going to be funny because I'm looking up Charles Spalding, right? This guy was a confectioner, so he made sweets and shit. He was a candy maker who was also an amateur engineer and built a diving bell that he died in. Charles Spalding was born in Canongate in Scotland on October 29th, 1738. Boy, that's a lot of detail. Good thing he kept that really accurate, detailed log. The son of Charles Spalding and Anne Finley. We even know who his parents were. His father was a bookseller in Canongate. As the son of a merchant, the younger Spalding eventually became a shop lad. Possessing a natural inclination towards mechanics, of course, Spalding spent much of his free time as a youth exploring this interest. Spalding eventually became a proprietor of a sugar refining and confectionery shop across from the Royal Exchange of the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. Let's see. On August 14th, 1768, Spalding married Suzanne Small, the daughter of James Small, factor of fortified Strawn Estates in Perthshire. Factor of forfeited Strawn estates in... What is factor of... In Scotland, a factor, a property manager, is a person or firm charged with superintending or managing properties and estates. Oh, right. A fortified Strawn. He was the property manager of a fortified Strawn in Perthshire, Scotland. Susan, her father were members of the Smalls of Diremina, Pressure, Scotland. The Smalls of Durnanan is a part of a private traditional Highland estate located near Inochdu in Moulin Parish, blah, blah, blah. The Durnanian estate is situated adjacent to a 64-mile Waymaker. Why do you keep talking about pedos, Scarface? What is the obsession? Well, I always talk about pedos too. I don't have any problem. I think we should talk about pedos all day. But this person is desperately trying to get you guys not to take me seriously. Right? This bot, this J bot, is trying everything it can to try to make me seem bad so the information is then tainted. Because there's nothing they can say or do to make any of this seem fucking reasonable. Spalding's death, he left a wife and 7 children under the age of 14, the youngest being just 6 months old. So this guy having 7 children, a 6-month-old baby, running a candy shop, just decides he's going to go try to build a diving bell and be the guy that tries it out? How does that even make sense? A public subscription fund was opened in London for the relief of the family. Spalding's widow continued to operate the confectionery after his death, eventually selling the business and moving to Musselburgh, where she died on October 31st, 1818. Charles Falconer, Baron Falconer of Thornton, is a descendant of Charles Spalding, as is Sheila Legge, the surrealist phantom from the 1936 London International Surrealist Exhibition. Never heard of that shit before. The International Surrealist Expedition was held blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's no information on it. I can get all the exhibitors. A whole list of fucking names of people. Like, oh yeah, just go look up all these names. You're not going to find out what this thing was about, though. The exhibition was officially opened in the presence of about 2,000 people by Andre Breton. The average attendance for the entire run of the exhibition was about 1,000 people per day. 1,000 people per day came through this thing. Over the course of the expedition, the following lectures were delivered to large audiences. The most iconic image of the exhibition is the opening day performance of Sheila Legge, who stood in the middle of Trafalgar Square, posing in a white drop-tail hemmed wedding dress, assembled an ensemble inspired by a Salvador Dali painting, with her head completely obscured by a flower arrangement. In one variation of the images capturing her performance, pigeons are perched on her outstretched gloved arms. Dali's lecture was delivered whilst wearing a deep-sea diving suit. Salvador Dali did a lecture wearing a deep-sea diving suit.
How did you hear him?
Nearly suffocating during the presentation,
No shit.
Dolly had to be rescued by the young poet David Gascon, who arrived with a spanner to release him from the diving helmet. A wrench. It's a wrench. That's what a spanner is. Instead of writing wrench, though, they put... So he just showed up with a wrench at the last minute to be like, hey, I'll get Salvador Dali out. I happen to carry the perfect size wrench with me everywhere I go. I'm a poet, duh. Of course we carry around wrenches. During the exhibition, Welsh poet Dylan Thomas carried around a cup of boiled string, asking visitors, would they rather it weak or strong? What?
Do you think it's weak or strong because it was boiled?
That's not what it says.
I think that's what it means.
Would they rather it weak or strong? Asking people, do you prefer your drink weak or strong, like it's a cup of coffee? The exhibition's catalog and guide was printed by the Women's Printing Society, a British publishing house dedicated to employing women. And that's that. That's all I get to know about the Surrealist exhibition. Because that's when I look up this guy, Charles Spalding's personal life, that's what I want to know about. His wife and their family lineage and all that. I was hoping when I saw personal life that they would at least attempt to say that he was educated here or whatever, where he got his extensive engineering / confectionery degree from. Candy shop owner. Candy shop. Made the diving bell he died in. So this guy is only referenced because he's supposedly...
A candy shop owner, a confectioner makes them.
Right. Fuck, what was I just about to say? Oh, the only reason we're talking about this guy is because they say he made improvements to the diving bell design. He fucking died. What improvements did he make? Sounds like they were pretty capable of doing it beforehand, at least. Actually, it doesn't actually say that. It says that there were a bunch of attempts, but it doesn't actually... No, the one, they were able to do it in Haiti. They were able to salvage that shit. Right? So this is what happens when you do this. When you do research. You understand that's what we're doing, right? We're going over what they want us Goyim to know. I'm not on some crazy conspiracy page. This is the narrative as us dumb Goyim are supposed to repeat it. Like it's just wild. It's like what are you doing? Okay, so we're back to the history of the diving bell. So that was the end of it, right? Because in 1775, Charles Spalding, Edinburgh confectioner, improved on Halley's design by adding a system of balance weights to ease the raising and lowering of the bell, along with a series of ropes for signaling the surface crew. Spalding and his nephew, Ebenezer Watson, nobody's named Ebenezer anymore, are they? Later suffocated off the coast of Dublin, in 1783 doing salvage work in a diving bell of Spalding's designs. So, the reason we went down this road is you're going to name your son... No, you're not. No, you're not. We already know that's not going to... You're too old, motherfucker. You're way too old to be having children. If you do, Fady, if you do, like, you'll hate it. Trust me. Right. Just come to my house for a little while. I don't even have little kids. Just come to my house. Just come hang out. We'll see how fun that is. It's always great. Kids are always great when you want them. But when you don't feel like doing it, and they're still there needing your attention and whatnot, huh? Yeah. It really, it changes things. But just understand what's happening here, guys. So the reason I went down the diving bell route is because we're told that in, let's see, that in 1827, while they were digging the Thames Tunnel, at 500, when they got to the 549 foot mark, a hole appeared in the tunnel's roof that the guy used a diving bell to go down and plug said hole with bags of clay. Ready? Ready? Here you go. The excavation was hazardous. The tunnel flooded suddenly on May 18th, 1827. So that would mean a lot of the skilled laborers that were being used in this tunnel probably died, right? If the tunnel floods suddenly and it's a tunnel, I would assume good thing there just happened to be a lot more skilled tunnel building laborers ready to jump right in and replace all those guys that just died from it. Does this make sense to you guys? What part of this is making sense to anyone? I'd love to know. Suddenly flooded on May 18th, 1827, after 549 feet had been dug. Islamabad Kingdom Brunel. Again, now this isn't a laborer. This is the guy who is now in charge of the whole project because his father was in charge but got sick from all the sewage.
So his son took it over.
So now his 20-year-old son took over, and instead of having somebody else go down in the diving bell to plug the hole, he's going to do it himself.
That's pride for you.
That's stupidity. That's not believable.
It is believable.
No, it's not,
Back
because
in
if
the
he
day,
dies in this super deadly, dangerous thing that apparently everyone died doing, then who's going to take over the construction? And what would you need him to do it for? We're not talking about some engineering thing. You're throwing bags out of a diving bell. How does that even work? How are you throwing things out of a diving? Oh, they opened up the hatch on the bottom, right? Lowered in a diving bell from a boat to repair the hole at the bottom of the river. A hole at the bottom of the river. Throwing bags filled with clay into the breach in the tunnel's roof. Following the repairs and the drainage of the tunnel, he held a banquet inside it. What? Come on. And the thing is, the whole idea of rich people having banquets inside nasty, dank, dark tunnels, that's actually a pretty common thing. At least in history. Nowadays, rich people don't seem to want to do shit like that anymore. But back then, holding a banquet in a fucking tunnel that was filled with sewage and shit. I mean, what? 6 men died when the tunnel flooded again the following year on January 12th, 1828. Just 4 days after a visit by Don Miguel, soon to become Regent of Portugal. So are we saying that no men died when it first flooded? That's immediate. The 6 men had, Islamabad himself was extremely lucky to survive the flooding. Of course. The main character always survives. Those must have been the guys in the red shirts. You know. They must have had on. Man, if I ever go to a job and everybody else is wearing, blue shirts and whatnot, tan shirts, and they're like, here, we're going to go on an adventure. Put on this red shirt. I'd be like, fuck you. That guy always dies. The 6 men had made their way to the main stairwell as the emergency exit was known to be locked. This is a tunnel underneath a river. What emergency exits and shit are we talking about? How? Where? What? How? If you go off to the side in any direction, you're still in a tunnel that's being flooded. What emergency exit could they possibly have?
Shut up.
Isambard instead made for the locked exit. Oh, while all the other guys were like, no, that shit's locked. He was like, that's okay.
I got a key.
Didn't say he had a key. A contractor named Beamish heard him there and broke the door down, and an unconscious Isambard was pulled out and revived.
I mean,
Broke the door down? I still don't, where was he? What's going on here? What are we? It's a tunnel. Where are the emergency exits in a tunnel? And then, like, what are we? It was an emergency exit that was supposed to be locked, but somebody broke the door down and. How does this pass as fucking history? He lying about submarines and has 35 kids in his Yup. I have 35 kids and I'm lying about it. I'm lying about the submarine. Apparently I'm in with my 35 kids. He lying, it says. He lying. Right there, as soon as I read he lying,
all your credibility goes out the
all
window.
your credibility goes out the window.
It just does.
Even if you say, oh, it was a mistake. Well, if you're going to be talking shit, you better make sure you're not going to give me something easy to focus on. He was sent to Brislington near Bristol to recuperate. Again, because travel back then was super easy. There he heard about the competition to build what became the Clifton Suspension Bridge.
You read about that bridge.
I'm not sure if I read around that one.
That name rings a bell.
But because it's used over and over
Well,
again.
no, it made me think of Cheers when you read it. So, Cliff.
But again, okay, so he heard about a contest, and that's part of the history. I guess, does he compete in the contest? In December 1834, Mark Brunel succeeded in raising enough money, including a loan of £240,000 from the Treasury to continue construction. That's amazing. Starting August 1835, the old rusted shield was dismantled and removed. By March of 36, the new shield, improved and heavier, was assembled in place and boring resumed. So what do you do during that almost year-long window, 8-month-long window, when the shield's gone? There's no shield. In 1835, the Italian poet Giacomo Leopardi parodied the construction of the Thames Tunnel in lines 126 through 129 of the poem Palinode el Marchese Gino Caponi. That's that little piece was just thrown in there for what? What does that have to do with the history of the tunnel being built?
Throw details in there and they'll just assume the rest of it's true.
What'd you say?
Throw some details in there and they'll assume the rest of it's true.
Remember, right?
It's all sales.
I mean,
That's all it is, sales.
I am telling you stuff, and then either I'm going to be proven wrong or I'm going to be proven right.
You want somebody to feel stupid and think that you're smart and know what you're talking about? Bring out the truth in lending and explain that to them. You always just bring out the details that you know those people.
Yeah, but at
It's
least
over
the
their
truth
head.
in lending details are details related to the thing. I mean, the truth in
Yeah.
lending isn't going to tell you about some poem some guy wrote at some point. This
No, but
this
it's
doesn't
gonna-
even have the details.
It's going to make them assume that you know what the fuck you're talking about.
Exactly,
everything else.
exactly. When you fill people with details, they leave the thing thinking, well, it must be true because there was a lot of details. They don't remember the details. They just know whether they got a lot of them or they didn't get very many. So we just learned about the 1835 poet who wrote a poem, and there was one line. Oh no, 3 lines. 3 lines were a parody of the tunnel construction. And that made it into the forever history of the Thames Tunnel. That's just ridiculous. Impeded by further floods, like you would think that would probably happen a lot since, you know, water and sewage was leaking from the top the whole fucking time. You know, because they were tunneling under a river that was 75 feet deep at its depth.
So at the bottom of that river is all fucking sewage and sludge? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, well, back in the day, that's what they used to do. Because remember, we'd figured out how to make skyscrapers and castles and churches on top of mountains surrounded by water. But nobody figured out what to do with our poop.
They figured out what to do with the horse poop, though, because that wasn't all over.
Right, the horse poop wasn't well, it was a problem at one point in history, but they just cleaned it up. Well, they didn't clean it up.
Oh, they put it in the River Thames.
No, she's referring to the horseshit crisis of early New York.
I'm referring to fucking all the pictures where you don't see any horse shit anywhere.
Right, but the official like crisis we're talking about is from the 1800s in New York.
The long dresses that the women wore that scraped
Would
the
have been
ground,
all
and the
covered
bottoms of
in
their dresses
shit.
are not covered in shit.
Just covered in shit.
How were they not?
Well, the estimate is that it would take 275 of today's modern day dump trucks to remove the amount of daily shit the 200,000 some horses that were in New York at the time would have produced. Never mind how you fed and hydrated all those horses, because horses like that would need endless water, especially in the summertime. Well, but then there's the wintertime when that shit road would then freeze, and you know how horses love walking on ice. What did they have, like spiked hooves that they would put on? Put on the snow tires, mother. Hang on, dink, dink.
Why would you risk your horse breaking a leg knowing that once they break a leg, you're going to shoot it and it's lame? So why would you even risk taking it out in that weather?
How? Just how? When it's as cold as it's been these last couple days, and people didn't have heat,
Man, I saw a lady
electricity.
walking her dog yesterday, and she had a coat on the dog, but they were standing at the stop sign. She was talking to some random person, and the dog's sitting there going like this with its paws.
Right, lifting up.
Because it's fucking cold, and this bitch is in it. Oh, I want to kill her.
But seriously, how could they fucking like how did they exist back? I've always questioned how anybody colonized Michigan. Like, you had to get here in like March, and it had to be an unseasonably warm year, and you got here in March and somehow built everything. By the time well, I guess it's just one of those years because back then winter used to come early, but this year it didn't. Like, how did anybody ever survive back then? How did you have animals that survived back then? Where did you park your horses overnight during those brutally cold winter nights?
Well, because all the businesses along the way always had stables for the horses.
Yeah,
That's
but
one thing that they did tell us. Everybody had stables.
Who cares if you have stables?
To house them overnight.
Okay, a stable. When I think of a stable, is that some airtight building with a phenomenal heat system inside?
No, but at the same.
And then how are you feeding these horses back in the winter? Where are you bringing in all this hay from? How are you bringing in all this hay?
Karen's chicken coop is pretty much open. Those couple of nights we had that were freezing, they had a heat lamp going on, but that's it because their core temperature is so much different than ours.
Great.
So they can withstand it. So horses can, probably take colder temps than we can. Their skin is thicker. Blah,
Sure.
Blah. But,
Sure.
so they don't necessarily need.
And then when there's like 10 feet of snow that falls, the horses just fucking dig it
I
out.
mean, we're disgusting. We think that animals are dispensable, so
We eat them.
we're fucking sick.
We eat them.
God forbid, you actually think that thing has feelings, and if it's freezing to death, it's probably terrified, and oh my God, I can't. Brain's gotta stop right there.
Impeded by further floods, August 23rd and the 3rd of November, 1837, March 20th, 1838, April 3rd, 1840. Man, that seems like it was pretty difficult. Fires and leaks of methane and hydrogen sulfide gas. The remainder of the tunneling was completed in November 1841. Another 5.5 years. After another 5.5 years. The extensive delays and repeated flooding made the tunnel the butt of metropolitan humor. Good Monsieur Brunel, let misanthropy tell that your work, half complete, is begun ill. Heed them not, bore away through gravel and clay, nor doubt the success of your tunnel. That's the best they could do. They had to make it rhyme, and that's the best they could do.
Those were poets, right?
That very mishap, when the Thames forced a gap and made it fit haunt for an otter, has proved that your scheme is no catchpenny dream. They say 'twill never hold water. James Smith, The Thames Tunnel, in Memoirs, Letters, and Comic Miscellanies, in prose and verse, of the late James Smith P. 185, H. Colburn, 1840. What was the publishing house like back in those days? And how did these publications reach the people? I mean, you're so like 2024, 25 that you tend to like put your mind spin on things and just sort of accept that that's how that works. But when you think about these things, like seriously, how was anything published back then? What publishing presses? And I know that one of the greatest, I'd say one of the top 3 inventions of the 1800s that then, allowed the 1900s to exist is something none of you have ever even heard of. Right? The linotype machine is, again, I think one of the top 3 inventions of maybe all time. And it just makes no sense. You know what? We're going to jettison off here for a minute because I just want you guys to know this. Linotype. The linotype machine is a line casting machine used in printing, which is manufactured and sold by the former Mergenthaler Linotype Company. Mergenthaler. Is that Chinese?
I think it's Spanish.
Mergenthaler. And Linotype Company and related companies. Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. It was a hot metal typesetting system that cast lines of metal type for one-time use. Linotype became one of the mainstays for typesetting, especially small-size body text, for newspapers, magazines, and posters from the late 19th century to the 1970s and 80s, when it was largely replaced by photo typesetting and digital typesetting. The name of the machine comes from producing an entire line of metal type at once, hence linotype. It was a significant improvement over the previous industry standards of letter-by-letter manual typesetting using a composing stick and shallow subdivided trays called cases. The linotype machine operator, listen to this. The linotype machine operator enters text on a 90-character keyboard. The machine assembles matrices or molds for the letter forms in a line. The assembled line is then cast as a single piece called a slug from molten type metal in a process known as hot metal typesetting. The matrices are then returned to the type machine to be reused continuously. This allows much faster typesetting and composition than hand composition, which operators place down one precast sort, metal letter, punctuation mark, or space at a time. The machine revolutionized typesetting with it newspaper publishing, making it possible for a relatively small number of operators to set type for many pages daily. Ottmar Mergenthaler invented the linotype machine in 1884 alongside James Ogilvy Cellophane, who provided the financial backing for commercialization. So, did you guys understand what I just read you? This is a mini foundry, right? It's a foundry. What it does is so each line that you see in a newspaper or in whatever, it somehow assembles those letters in a row, and then it's in some part of this machine is molten metal that is then spit out with the line of type on it, and it becomes a little metal slug, and then you lay down each slug in a row and you get your page, right? And then after you use that, you take that slug and feed it back into the machine where it melts it back down so it can make another one. Does that make sense? History. Here you go. Here's a couple of these mini factories in use. Mini foundries. Think about that. You don't just put some wood in a fireplace and you can melt down metal. You have to have specific gases, high pressure gases, extreme heat to be able to melt metal. So imagine how much heat one or two of these fucking machines could produce in a small area. Listen to how crazy this is, right? In 1876, a German clockmaker, Ottmar Mergenthaler, who had immigrated to the United States in 1872, was approached by James O. Cellophane and his associate, Charles T. Moore, who sought a quicker way of publishing legal briefs. They went to a clockmaker to be like, hey, we need you to invent an all new type of machine so we can print things. So we can make it make sense as to how we get newspapers out every day. So here we go, right? We're going to get a bunch of details and shit, right? So this was in 1876. They approached him. By 1884, so 8 years later, he conceived the idea of assembling metallic letter molds called matrices and casting molten metal into them, all within a single machine. His first attempt proved the idea feasible, and a new company was formed. Improving his invention, yada yada, Mergenthaler further developed his idea of an independent matrix machine. In July 1886, so 10 years later, the first commercially used linotype was installed in the printing offices of the New York Tribune. Here it was immediately used on the daily paper and a large book. The book, the first ever composed with the new linotype method, was titled The Tribune Book of Open Air Sports. Initially, the Mergenthaler Linotype Company was the only company led by Ottmar Mergenthaler and eventually also James O'Celphane. Producing line casting machines, but in time, other companies would begin manufacturing similar machines. The Intertype Company produced the Intertype, a machine closely resembling the linotype, using the same matrices as the linotype, which started production around 1914, where Mergenthaler prided themselves on intricately formed cast iron parts on their machine. Intertype machined many of their similar parts from steel and aluminum. They just did it. They just did it. It's a good thing there was no patent infringement or anything, because, back then it was a big deal to have patent infringement. Major newspaper publishers retired linotype and similar hot metal typesetting machines during the 70s and 80s, replacing them with photo typesetting equipment, and later computerized typesetting and page composition systems. As of 2023, the last known newspaper still using the linotype in the United States is the Saga Crescent. I don't know. Is the last one in Western Europe. Overview. The linotype machine consists of 4 major sections. Here you go. That's the drawing of it. Right? Got to have the drawing. The operator interacts with the machine via the keyboard, composing the lines of text. In what? What are these composed in? How does the machine, how does that work? You write it out and then the machine just remembers it? The other sections are automatic. They start as soon as the line is completely composed. Some linotype machines included a paper tape reader. This also allowed the text to be typeset to be supplied over a telegraph line. Perforator operators produced the paper tape text at a much higher speed, which then was cast by more productive tape-controlled linotype machines. There you go. The German clockmaker just made the machine that could produce these things all by itself. Liquid metal, hot liquid metal, right? Each matrice contains the letter form for a single character of a font type, i.e., a particular typeface in a particular size. The letter forms are engraved into one side of the matrix. For sizes up to 14 points, and in some matrices of size 16 to 24 points, the matrix has 2 letter forms on it, the normal and auxiliary positions. The normal position has the upright Roman form of a given character, and on the auxiliary, the slanted italic form of the character will be used. But this can also be the boldface form or even a different font entirely. The machine operator can select which of the two faces will be cast by operating the auxiliary rail of the assembler, or when setting entire lines of italics by using the flap, which is a piece that can be turned under a portion of the first elevator column. Getting a lot of details here, aren't you? This is the origin of the old typesetting terms upper rail for italic and lower rail for Roman characters. Why do we type in Roman? These terms have These terms have persisted in photo typesetting technology, even though the machines of the auxiliary rail do not exist there. The character on a linotype matrix, when viewed, is not inverted as a letter for conventional movable type would be, and the letter is incised below the surface rather than raised above it. This is because the matrix is not used directly to print onto the paper. Rather, it is used as part of a mold from which a metal slug will be cast. The slug has its features reversed, therefore the matrix does not. The magazine section is the part of the machine where the matrices are held when not in use. You know, a magazine like a gun, and released as the operator touches keys on the keyboard. Gee, that'd be weird. What would happen if you had to use the same, like, what did they have multiple E's in them? So if your sentence had more than one E in it, which it undoubtedly would have, the machine just had backup matrices, slugs ready. Most main magazines have 90 channels, but those for larger fonts carried only 72 or even 55 channels. The auxiliary magazines used on some machines typically contain 34 channels, or for a magazine carrying larger fonts, 28 channels. Again, sure are lots of details, huh? The magazine holds a particular font type, i.e., a particular type design in a particular size. If a different size or style was needed, the operator would switch to a different magazine. Man, that seems like a lot of work. Good thing the reporters were able to get the stories to these guys every single day, so they could then sit there and type these all out, changing magazines and doing everything they could, so that their then printer could print that shit out and get the newspapers out to you every fucking day. Remember, a German clockmaker made this just because. He was approached and they were like, hey, can you make this? And he was like, fuck yeah. 10 years later. Many models of the linotype machine could keep several magazines, as many as 4, available at a time. In some of these, the operator could shift to a different magazine by raising or lowering the stack of magazines with a crank. Think about that. He would have to crank something up and down to create different font sizes. So when you look at old newspapers and they're full of all these different font sizes and all that shit, think about how much work went into that. According to this, such machines would not allow mixing fonts with a single line. So how did that happen? Others, such as the models 25 and 26, allowed arbitrary mixing of text from 2 magazines within the same line. And the Model 9 extended this capability to mixing from up to 4 magazines with a single line. So model 25 and 26 were made before model 29. Seems like model 9 is an improvement. Older clocks are very intricate. It's not that far-fetched to see one back in the day to right, that's what it is. Because clocks were really intricate. So this guy invented a fucking self-produced, a self-contained foundry. Dude, it's like that willingness to believe. You're one of those people who sees fault in everything, and yet you think all of this shit's true. Why? Why do you think this is true? The same Jays that tell you that they did a ceasefire and then killed people every day since are the same Jays that give you this narrative. What's wrong with you, dude? And notice how, again, there's no details about how all this came to be. His prototype was invented 8 years or a few years later, and he had success with it. And because of that success, he just tinkered around a little bit, and suddenly he had the working full model. And you say, oh, well, blah, blah. Go try to find a more accurate history on it. I've searched as many pages as YouTube will, or as Google will let me, to try to find any sort of history on this shit, and it doesn't work. LOL, no clue about what you're saying is true or not. Not even sure about what you're talking about. I'm just saying clockmaker in the 1800s had to be skilled at building stuff. Right, and they just were. They just were. I mean, you're not thinking about it. All those clocks, right? They have all these intricate gears and shit like that. Where'd they get all those gears from? What company was out there producing all the individual gears that had to be invented to be used to make clocks better? And go ahead and try to look up the history on clocks. You would think that would have been documented. Or even time itself. How did we start keeping time? Good luck. The escapement. In a linotype machine, the term escapements refer to the mechanism at the bottom of the magazine that releases matrices one at a time as keys are pressed on the keyboard. There is an escapement for each channel in the magazine. So this is what they look like. This is one of those matrices, right? No. Right. So the matrices are made like this, and it's each line, right? And then the machine produces a metal slug with that line on it in that type font that is then laid in the thing, in like the sheet, so each page could be made. It's a line O type, each line. And then that slug is fed back into the machine where it melts it down to produce another one. To keep the matrices circulating smoothly throughout the machine, it is necessary that oil not be allowed anywhere near the matrix path. Oil in the matrix path, due to careless maintenance or over lubrication of nearby parts, can combine with dust, forming a gummy substance that is eventually deposited in the magazine by the matrices. This can cause the matrix to be released from the matrix to be released from the magazine slower than its usual speed, and usually results in a letter or two arriving out of sequence in the assembler, a matrix transposition. When these machines were in heavy use, it was not uncommon for an operator to set type at a rate of over 4,000 EMs per hour. An EM is a unit in the field of typography equal to the currently specified point size. For example, 1 EM in a 16-point typeface is 16 points. Therefore, this unit is the same for all typefaces at a given point size. That didn't answer my question.
I don't think it was really supposed to, quite honestly.
In metal type, the point size, and hence the EM from M quadrant, was equal to the line height of the metal body from which the letter rises. In metal type, the physical size of a letter could not normally exceed the EM. I'm not even going any further. I don't fucking know. Think about this, though. Think about how amazingly intricate this machine had to be. And they were sent all over the country. So who knew how to work on them? You couldn't just YouTube it. So how was, I guess they must have trained a bunch of specialized linotype machine mechanics to go around the country to ensure that all of these machines were working. The fastest operators could exceed 10,000 EMs per hour, approximately 10 to 30 words per minute in today's units. 30 words per minute using liquid metal. Hence, careful lubrication and regular cleaning were essential to keep these machines operating at full potential. So again, did they just have a guy that went around and did that? Because I would assume like these typesetters and shit, they were probably pretty busy. Keyboard and composing section. In the composing section, the operator enters the text for a line on the keyboard. Each keystroke releases a matrix from the magazine mounted above the keyboard. The matrix travels through the channels to the assembler where the matrices are lined up side by side in the order they were released. Right. So, again, they must have had a whole bunch of E's ready. When a space is needed, the operator touches the space band lever just to the left of the keyboard. This releases a space band from the space band box. Space bands are stored separately from the matrices because they are too big to fit in the magazine. Do you understand just how incredibly intricate this machine was? So, this clockmaker, during the 10 years it took him to do this, was he still making clocks? Was he still working in his clock warehouse, whatever?
I mean, even clocks and all the gear, like.
Right, I said that. You were reading something. And to think all of these parts had to be made for him. They didn't exist. So the clockmaker was just constantly taking new specs to the who that was then cutting these pieces just to the exact size for him. So then he'd run back and try it. And, okay, so this one fits, but this one. I mean, think about this. By horse. This is all by horse, mind you. Once enough text had been entered for the line, the operator depressed the casting lever mounted on the front right corner of the keyboard. This lifts the completed line in the assembler up between two fingers in the delivery channel, simultaneously tripping the catch holding it in position. The spring-operated delivery channel then transports the line into the casting section of the machine and engages the clutch that drives the casting section and the subsequent transfer into the distribution section. The operator is now finished with the line. The remaining process is automatic. Like a Rube Goldberg machine, right? Because it's not like there was computers or anything to facilitate this. So this was all like it was all just. Are you kidding me here? While the line is being cast, the operator can continue entering text for the next line. Linotype keyboard after an aftermarket star quarter attachment, selectively off flushing right, center, or left is to the immediate right. What?
No further questions. You were not in the hotel room when Anne was assaulted? No. You did not hear what she said?
Seriously, this just looks like some junk.
You allege that in your private...
The keyboard has 90 keys. The usual arrangement is that black keys on the left were for small letters, white keys on the right, capital letters, and blue keys in the center for numbers, punctuation marks, spaces, small caps, and other items. There is no shift key of the kind found on typewriters. The arrangement of letters corresponds roughly to letter frequency, with the most frequently used letters on the left. The first two columns of keys are... Now we're going to get a bunch of fucking nonsense. A linotype operator would often deal with a typing error by running his fingers down these two columns. Right. This is why I know about this, actually. Thus, filling out the line with the nonsense words "etuin," which is also known as a rundown. It is often quicker to cast a bad slug than to hand correct the line within the assembler. The slug with the rundown is removed once it has been cast or by the proofreader, though a lot of them somehow snuck through. The linotype keyboard has the same alphabet arrangement given twice, once for lowercase letters, the keys in black on the left side of the keyboard, and once for uppercase letters, the keys in white located on the right side of the keyboard. You realize they're just repeating themselves again here, right? To make it sound like there's a lot more information here than there is. The blue keys in the middle are punctuation digits, small capital letters, and fixed with spaces. In proper keyboard operation, an experienced operator's left hand operates only the space band key and the left column keys. The operator's right hand strokes the remaining keys on the entire keyboard. This is nonsense. The keys on the keyboard are connected by vertical push rods to the escapements. When a key is pressed, the corresponding escapement is activated. Which releases a matrix from the machine. With one exception, each key corresponds directly to a channel in the standard 90-channel magazine. The one exception is the lowercase e. That letter is used so often, here we go, that the 90-channel magazine actually has 91 channels, with 2 channels, the leftmost 2, both used for the letter E. Similarly, the 72-channel magazine actually has 73 channels with the... So why don't they just call it that? Alternate line release matrices alternately form the 2 E channels. Alternate line release matrices alternately form the 2 E channels in the magazine. On machines that support multiple magazines, there is a shifting mechanism that controls which magazine is currently connected to the keyboard. In most machines, this is done by raising or lowering the stack of magazines. Here's one of the magazines. In justified text, the spaces are not fixed width. They expand to make all lines equal width. In linotype machines, this is done by space bands. A space band consists of 2 wedges with one similar in size and shape to a type matrix, one with a long tail. The width part of the wedge is at the bottom of the tail, so pushing the tail up expands the space band. Due to their size, space bands are not held in the magazine, but in the space band box, and released one at a time by pressing the space band lever at the left edge of the keyboard. Isn't that weird how we're repeating ourselves again? Here we go. Here's the assembler. Okay. As the matrices are released from the magazine, they are guided by way of partitions in the assembler the assembler front down to a rapidly moving belt, which brings the matrices into the assembler. The spaceband box is positioned above the assembler, the bands dropping almost directly into the assembler. At the end of the moving belt is a rapidly rotating star wheel that gives each incoming matrix or spaceband a small kick to make room for the next one. The star wheel is made of a phenolic type material to minimize wear of the matrices and bands. What's a phenolic type material? It's not even blue. The assembler itself is a rail that holds the matrices and space bands with a jaw on the left end set to the desired line width. When the operator judges that the line is close enough to full, some machines have an attached bell to accomplish the same thing. He raises the casting lever at the bottom of the keyboard to send the line to the casting section of the linotype machine. The remaining processing for that line is automatic. As soon as the finished line has been transferred to the casting section, the operator can begin composing the next line of text. Again, just repeating ourselves.
Because we're friends, we succumb to the same temptation.
So this is the slug that's produced. And this is the width of it. So that big ass slug is produced with this tiny ass lettering on it. What's it say? Sephin King. Sephin Kuhn. What is Sephin Kuhn? Let me just look this up real quick, please. Do you need this?
No.
At Purdue, we promise to stay no antibiotics ever. Purdue.
Should GLP-1 weight loss medication cost hundreds of dollars? We don't think so. Get started today and see your eligibility for a copay as low as $0 at lifemd.com.
It's a name. Sephin Kuhn, quantum simulation of the Switchinger model. Chief Master Sergeant Sephin Kuhn. Chief Master Sergeant Sephin Kuhn is... It's this guy. Chief Master Sergeant. Looks like a tough badass, doesn't he? Oh, come on. It's weird. I wonder why they chose to go with that. Hopefully that's the guy.
I've already talked to him.
Oh, that is the guy. Let's hurry up and get that out. The casting intermittently when triggered by the operator at the completion of a line. The full casting cycle time was less than 9 seconds. From molten metal to a solid slug in less than 9 seconds. Motive power for the casting section came from a clutch-operated drive running large cams. The keyboard and distributor sections ran all the time. Since distribution may take much longer, however, the front part of the distributor completed its job before the next line of matrices was distributed. 1800s. We're talking about the 1800s. The construction of the machine was such that both the return of the former line to the magazine and the composition of the next line could occur while the current line was being cast. enabling very high productivity. 1870s, 1880s. Older machines typically had 1/3 horsepower, 250 watt, 850 or 1140 revolution per minute motor geared to the main clutch wheel. The inner shaft engaging this wheel while the casting cycle was in operation. An external leather belt on this wheel ran a second jack shaft, which powered the distributor and keyboard matrix conveyor and escapements through additional belting off this shaft. Gas-fired pots, such as in the illustration below, were most common in the early years. The diagram of the justification process. The composed line is locked up between the jaws 1 and 2 of the vise. The justification ram then moves up to expand the space bands to fill space between the vise jaws. Apparently that is what we're looking at. Think about how small all of this is. And again, think that it was invented in the 1880s by a guy who just literally like invented this whole thing. It wasn't like he was supposedly building off of other designs. He just invented all of this. Gas-fired pots, blah, blah. Most common in the early years, with the pot being thermostatically controlled, high flame when under temperature and low flame when up to temperature. And then a second smaller burner from the mouth and throat heating, or a smaller burner for the mouth and throat heating, with the more modern installations running on 1500 watt electric pots with an initially rheostat controlled mouth and throat heaters, several hundred watts on the electric modules. The temperature was precisely adjusted to keep the lead and tin type metal liquefied just prior to being cast. Newer machines and the larger machines above 36 EM matrix size typically used the more standard half horsepower 370 watt motor after V-belts came into common use in the 1930s. The large machines also had the so-called double pot with either larger burners or else 2250 watt pot heaters and larger mouth and throat heaters. That is fucking weird. The most modern linotypes, I don't care about the most modern linotypes. The most modern linotypes had the mouth and throat heaters thermostatically controlled, and improvement over the manual rheostat adjustment or gas flame adjustment. Are we to believe that they somehow had just regular old like gas burners that were able to heat metal to a liquid state, and they had to manually make sure it stayed at the right temperature while also doing all this other work and like think about how insane this is. The linotype companies supplied kerosene heaters and line shaft operated machines for use in locales without electricity. So where did they get all the kerosene from?
The donkeys bought it.
The casting section receives completed lines from the assembler and uses these to cast the type slugs that are produced that are the product of the linotype machine. The casting section is automatic, again reminding us, because you would have to be like, well, how the fuck, it's like thinking about how when they're traveling 17,500 miles per hour in the orbit of space, how they're able to link the rockets up together with the with the the space station or whatever. You'd think any of the slightest moves wrong would, and they're going 17,000 plus miles per hour,
Million miles an hour.
but they're going like super slow. Okay, we're almost there. We're almost there. All right, we're there. Like, but we don't have to worry about how they do it because the computers do it. It's automatic now. Yeah, we don't have to worry about how the humans make all these fucking calculations per second to attach one ship to another ship flying at 17,000.
Didn't you see what was the name of that movie?
Armageddon, all of them.
No, the one with the hidden figures.
No.
That's how they use the human calculator.
Oh yeah, those black ladies down on the ground. How much do I like? But see, again, where would somebody even practice that? How could they simulate moving at 17,000 plus miles per hour, but in a gravityless place that the molecules are so thin, it doesn't feel like you're going that
That was
fast.
the thing, that they didn't really practice it. They just did the mathematical calculations and trusted the math.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Trust the math.
Oh, okay. The casting section receives the lines. The casting section is automatic. Once it is activated by the operator sending a completed line by raising the casting lever, a series of cams and levers, yada yada, move the matrices through the casting section and control the sequence of steps that produce the slug. The casting material is an alloy of lead, 85%, antimony, 11%, and tin, 4%. How do you think they came up with that recipe? How many different recipes did they try? You know what? I bet it was the first try. And produces a one-piece casting slug capable of 300,000 impressions before the casting begins to develop deformities and imperfections, and the type must be cast again. Oh my God. The continuous heating of the molten alloy causes the tin and antimony in the mixture to rise to the top and oxidize along with other impurities into a substance called dross, which must be skimmed off. Excessive dross formation leads to the alloy softening as the proportion of lead increases. I mean, again, this is something you wouldn't have known until you've already done it a bunch of times. The mixture must then be assayed. The mixture must then be assayed, and tin and antimony added back in the form of specially proportioned alloy to restore the original strength and properties of the alloy. Well, how do you know how much of it has been removed? I mean, if the mixture is 85% lead, 11% antimony, and 4% tin, how do you know that 1% of the tin or antimony isn't still left? And then by adding whatever you do, you don't throw it off. Remember, this is all manual, right? From this guy, look at this guy's like, dude, you're using big words. You're reading big words. I don't understand them.
Get your dictionary.
I don't understand the words you're using. So I'm going to quote Samuel Jackson because that makes me clever. Durr. From the assembler, the assembled line moves via the first elevator to the justification vise. The vise has two jaws, 1 and 2 in the illustration, which are set to the desired line width. The space bands are now expanded to justify the line. When the line is justified, the matrices fit tightly between the vise jaws, forming a tight seal that will prevent the molten tight metal from escaping when the line is cast. Boy, that's fucking convenient. Justification is done by a spring-loaded ram which raises the tails of the space bands unless the machine was equipped with a car parts automatic hydraulic quadening attachment or linotype hydroquadener. Duh. If the operator did not assemble enough characters, the line will not justify correctly. Even with the space bands expanded all the way, the matrices are not tight. A safety mechanism in the justification vise detects this and blocks the casting operation. Without such a mechanism, the result would be a squirt of molten type metal spraying out through the gaps between the matrices, creating a time-consuming mess and a possible hazard to the operator. Never mind the molten metal, the heat that must be produced by these machines. If a squirt did occur, it was generally up to the operator to grab the hell bucket and catch the flowing lead. So the operator is working two-handed, feet, all that shit. A squirt happens, and the operator goes, "Oh shit!" Grabs a bucket and puts it out before the liquid metal can hit the ground. You know, like cartoons.
Yeah.
It was so called because the bucket would often go to hell or melt while holding the molten lead that was still extremely hot. Also, in conjunction with possible hazards facing an operator, toxic lead fumes were possible as they were the result of melting the lead ingots for casing. Yeah, no shit. This is fucking crazy. Mold disc and crucible. Linotype mold disc with a complete line of matrices and space bands ready to be cast. So, again, dude said, you know, clockmakers were really good at making stuff back then. Think about this. Who makes this?
I don't know. I can't.
These aren't like huge. So like you would imagine if like one of these little ripples was off, or one of this or that or the other thing was off even a little bit, it would fuck the whole thing up. Good thing those clockmakers were so good at making crazy shit, huh? The justification vise holds the assembled line against the face of the mold disc. The mold disc has rectangular openings which correspond to the line length and point thickness of the slugs, cast lines, to be made. Mold liners fit into these openings for specific slug dimensions. The maximum line length of the typical line setter is 30 picas. A pica is a typographic unit of measure corresponding to approximately 1/6 of an inch or from 1/68 to 1/73 of a foot. One pica is further divided into 12 points. Boy, that is interesting. A less common variant was fitted with 42 pica molds, though these are now rare to non-existent. Then why fucking put it in the story other than for fucking stupid detail? Directly behind the mold disc is the crucible, which contains molten tight metal at an optimal 535 degrees Fahrenheit. They kept the molten metal at the optimal 535 degrees in this self-contained machine built in the 1880s, you motherfuckers. What are you talking about? You guys are cool with this. At the moment before casting, the mold disc moves forward on its slide, again, all automatically. Studs in the mold disc engage with blocks on the vise so that the mold disc seats gently, yet tightly and squarely against the line of matrices held in the first elevator jaws and between the vice jaws. The vice jaws compress the line of matrices so molten metal is prevented from squeezing between the mats on casts. The crucible tilts forward, forcing the mouthpiece tightly against the back of the mold. The plunger in the well of the crucible quickly descends, forcing the molten metal up the crucible throat and injecting it into the mold cavity through the array of orifices in the mouthpiece. Man, it sure does seem like they're talking about people. The jets of molten metal first contact against the casting face of the matrices and then fills the mold cavity to provide a solid slug body. These have character shapes punched into them, so the result is a casting slug with the character shapes on the line on its top face. The mold disc is sometimes water cooled and often air cooled with a blower to carry away the heat of the molten type metal and allow the cast slugs to solidify quickly. So now they have a blower. Or somebody's pouring water on them. Or is this just another part of the machine that has the water drippy part? When casting is complete, the plunger is drawn upward, putting the metal back down the throat from the mouthpiece. The pot pulls backwards away from the mold. The mold disc retracts from the vice studs, which held it in perfect relation to the mold, thus breaking the slug away from the matrices. Oh, God damn it. The mold slug then rotates counterclockwise. In its travel, the slug base is trimmed by the back knife for height to paper 0.918 of an inch, and then returns it to the neutral position in front of the ejector blades. And aligned with the knife block assembly, a pair of honed knives with a fixed knife and a knife which is set to the point thickness of the mold liners being cast with. Remember, this is all automatic. The knives are set to dead parallel. The fixed knife on the left bears against the smooth side of the slug, the mold body face of the slug. As it brushes next to it, the right knife, trims the ribs on the slug, the mold cap face of the slug. The disc stops when the mold is vertical on the right, directly in front of the ejector. The ejector is stacked with a series of narrow blades that push the completed slug from the mold aperture in the mold disc. The blades are narrow enough to pass through a mold set to 6 points in thickness with 0.004 inch clearance between the fixed mold face and the left side of the blades. And this all works just over and over and over again. No complications. You know, the slugs can be printed over 300,000 times before they have to be returned. All of this is just da 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 da. The fastest people can produce 30 words per minute. 30 words per minute. And the machine is just... And none of that is by computer. That's all by Rube Goldberg. You know, you gotta light the fucking match, send it on the roller skate to burn the fucking line that drops the anvil down and hits the thing that goes up and tips over the paint can and come on, do you realize how crazy this shit is? The blades are each 2 picas in width and the number of blades engaged on ejection are set based on the line length being cast. All blades are engaged for a 30 picoslug. Fewer are engaged as the measure of the slug body is narrowed by the use of progressively longer mold liners. This prevents the ejector blades from striking the back of the mold liner on narrow slugs. As the slug is pushed from the mold, the slug passes a set of knife edges in the knife block, which trims off any small irregularities in the casing and produces a slug of exactly the desired point thickness. From there, the slug drops into the gallery tray, which holds the lines in the order in which they were cast. So these knives cut metal over and over. Who sharpens these knives? I would assume these knives would have to be sharpened on a regular basis. You know, these tiny little knives that are 2 picas apart from each other and all that shit. Who's in there sharpening the knives every day? Distribution mechanism. The most significant innovation in the linotype machine was that it automated the distribution step, i.e., returning the matrices and space bands back to the correct place in their respective magazines. This is done by the distributor. Oh my God. After casing is completed, the matrices are pushed to their second elevator, which raises them to the distributor at the top of the magazine. The space bands are separated out at this point and are returned to the space box. The matrices have a pattern of teeth at the top, by which they hang from the distributor bar. Some of the teeth are cut away. Which pattern of teeth is cut away depends on the character on the matrix, i.e., which channel the magazine it belongs in. Similarly, teeth are cut away along portions of the distributor bar. The bar on the elevator has all teeth, so it will hold any matrix, but not the space bands, which have no teeth at all. Man. As the matrices are carried along the distributor bar by the distributor screws, they will hang on only as long as there are teeth enough to hold them. As soon as the matrix reaches the point where each of its teeth correspond to a cutaway tooth on the distributor bar, it is no longer supported and will drop into the matrix channel below and line up perfectly, and everything will be okay. The pattern of the teeth is a 7-bit binary code, which the innermost part of the teeth at the bottom of the notch being the most significant bit. Again, it's amazing that these teeth can get used and used and used and used, and they never fall off. They never break. Just used over and over again. With the innermost, the pattern of the teeth is 7-bit binary code, with the innermost pair of teeth at the bottom of the notch being the most significant bit. The codes count up from the left side of the magazine, of the main magazine. Code 0, no teeth, is for space bands, which are not carried up to the distributor. Right, we just talked about this. Code 1 is skipped. No reason for this is given in the linotype manual. Code 2 through 92 are for the 91 channel main magazine, and the codes above that are for the auxiliary magazine if one is installed on the machine. The widest auxiliary magazine has 34 channels, so its rightmost channel is code 125. Code 126 is unused, while code 127 is used for pi matrices, described below. You want to grab a sandwich? Cool, appreciate it. In typesetting, it is sometimes necessary to use characters that are uncommon. Okay, I don't care about the rest of that. So, the reality is, it doesn't explain it. It gives you a shit ton of details, but how you get this molten metal, how How he invented this is beyond belief. This makes a clock seem like a brick. You know? I mean, this is stupid. How do you... He was like, you know what it needs? Molten metal. With 86% lead, 11% antimony, and 4% tin. Yeah. So that part has to be manually skimmed off and then re-added. Like, this is just fucking stupid. Here you go. A row of linotype machines. That looks like 4 on 1. It looks like there's a bunch of them actually. I don't know. I don't know how far back it goes. But can you imagine the heat being produced by a row of 4 of these machines? In printing and typography, hot metal typesetting, also called mechanical typesetting, hot lead typesetting, hot metal, or hot type, is a technology for typesetting text and letterpress printing. This method injects molten type metal into a mold that has the shape of one or more glyphs. The resulting sort... Hey, Chubby! Do the thing! The resulting sorts or slugs are later used to press ink onto paper. Normally, the typecasting machine would be controlled by a keyboard or by a paper tape. It was the standard technology used for mass market printing from the late 19th century until the arrival of pictures. Hot metal typesetting was developed in the late 19th century as a development of the conventional cast metal type. The technology had several advantages. It reduced labor since type sorts did not need to be slotted into position manually, and each casting created crisp new type for each printing job. In the case of linotype machines, each line was cast as a robust, continuous block, hence linotype, which was used for rapid newspaper printing. That's it. That's all I can find. You want to hear about the Mergenthaler Linotype Company? Was a company founded in the United States in 1886 to market the linotype machine, a system to cast metal type in lines, line caster, originally invented by Ottmar Mergenthaler. Excuse me. It became the world's leading manufacturer of book and newspaper typesetting equipment. Meaning, all of the books, newspapers, magazines, and all that shit printed after 1886 was made on this machine. So how come you've never heard of it? You may have God. Fuck your God. God isn't real, you dumb fuck. God, you're dumb. And I'm dumb, incoherent rambling. Yep, it's me. Just making up all these words. That ad hominem shit is hilarious, right? Because they're so dumb. These Jays are so dumb. They feel like they're like I'm inferior, right? So I shouldn't be able to be smarter than them. So when I am, and I'm using a bunch of words and talking about shit they don't understand and blah, 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 they get upset. Like, this dumb goyim shouldn't be smarter than me. Why is this goyim so smart? Right? So then they just start doing dumb shit. It became the world's leading manufacturer of books and newspapers. Outside North America, its only serious challenger for book typesetting was the Anglo-American Monotype Corporation. Starting in 1960, the Mergenthaler Linotype Company became a major supplier of photo typesetting equipment, which included laser typesetters, type fonts, scanners, typesetting computers. Wow, that's amazing. In 1987, the U.S.-based Mergenthaler Linotype Company became part of the German Linotype Hell AG. In the United States, the company name changed to Linotype Company. In 1996, the German Linotype Hell AG was taken over by the German printing machine company Heidelberger Druckmaschinen AG. A separate business, Linotype Library GmbH, was established to manage the digital assets. In 2005, Linotype Library GmbH shortened its name to Linotype GmbH, and in 2007, Linotype GmbH was acquired by Monotype Imaging Holdings, Inc., the parent of Monotype Imaging and others. Monotype announced in August 2023 that it was discontinuing Linotype.com, effectively closing the business. This is just after I started talking about this shit. I've been talking about the Linotype for a little over a year now. And no, I mean, in August, it had to be right around there, actually. Founding and history are different for some reason. The invention of the machine to replace the labor-intensive task of typesetting by hand had been tackled by many inventors during the 19th century. The most time consumed was not in creating the text, but in returning the characters to their proper position for future use. Mergenthaler solved this problem by placing so the hardest part is not the liquid metal slugs that are created and then reused. It's returning Mergenthaler solved this problem by placing a type mold for a letter on the side of a specifically keyed matrix with multiple matrix molds available for any given letter. The linotype operator would type in a line of text. The machine would drop each matrix with its mold into place, assembling the matrices into a line of text that was needed. Hot lead alloy was then forced into the molds of matrices, creating the fresh line of type. The linotype operator would then go on to type in the next line. Multiple lines would be stacked into blocks, sometimes paragraphs, to be set in place in the proper column of the page layout. Meanwhile, back inside the linotype machine, the matrices used for the line would progress through the machine, where the serial keying system on the end of the matrix, unique for each letter, would allow the matrix to drop back only into the correct storage slot, ready for the next use. Another benefit of this overall process was that each edition of the paper was created from a fresh casting of metal, thus avoiding problems with type wear. Another problem Mergenthaler solved was in justifying the type, or ensuring that in a column of print there were flush margins on the left and right. Hand compositors had previously done this by using spaces of different widths in a line to ensure that the lines all ended at the same point. Mergenthaler adapted the space band, patented by J.W. Shuckers. J.W. Shuckers invented that. Of course, it's not blue, so I can't actually see it, right? A device consisting of two wedges of metal connected loosely. When a line of type was being justified, all the spaceband wedges would be pushed up in two passes to spread the line out to the full measure being cast. The spacebands were stored for reuse in a different location from the matrices, remember, in the spaceband box? The invention of the first working linotype was a long, arduous, and intricate process that involved many players and the creation of a long succession of companies. In 1876, the The National Printing Company was organized under the laws of the District of Columbia, under the laws of the District of Columbia, not Washington, D.C., and Louis Celphane, the brother of James O. Celphane, was elected president. Wow, that's amazing. After the first successful trial of the linotype in October 1885, see? We just immediately go to the trial machine was made. How the fuck did you get this? The Mergenthaler Printing Company was established to raise fresh capital from the shareholders of the National Printing Company. Finally, the Mergenthaler Linotype Company was formed in New York in 1895. Philip Tell Dodge served as its first president until 1928, when his son Norman Dodge replaced him. The Mergenthaler Linotype Company of New York, the organization's newest iteration, was launched with $5 million capital in $1895 and $10 million in $1895 in stock holdings across 333 investors. Oh, man. They threw that in there, huh? They just happen to have 333 investors. Now, I know there's a lot of you that won't think anything of that, right? Never mind that you see an iteration 3. You always see that 33 thing everywhere. You probably think, wow, that's weird. 33 is used, but you don't realize what that is. Some of you see that 33 and go, holy shit, talk about smoking gun. And then some of you are like, pay attention to me. Come on, please. I like you. I like not liking you. Ugh. You know, blowing all those drugs out of my nose. Since that's what you do when you snort drugs, you blow your nose a lot, right? $333 investors. If that wasn't like just driving that point home. Again, either you see it or you don't. In 1889, the Linotype Company, a British offshoot of the firm, was formed by Joseph Lawrence, publisher of the Railway magazine. You mean 2 years after it was... No, 4 years after. By a different guy. In 1899, a new factory in Broadheath, Eltrincham, I don't know, was opened. In 1903, the British company merged with the Machine Trust to form Linotype and Machinery Ltd. Mergenthaler Linotype dominated the printing industry through the 20th century. The machines were so well designed, major parts remained virtually unchanged for nearly 100 years. Right? Investment is J. Yeah, well, a particularly notable success was Linotype's legibility group of typefaces used by most of the world's Latin alphabet newspapers for much of the 20th century. That's amazing. The ruggedness of the Linotype system, which cast lines as solid bars of type, aided this dominance. Linotype Company was merged with Mergenthaler Acquisition K.S. Paul to form Linotype Paul Ltd., which developed a range of Linotron type phototypesetters using K.S. Paul's cathode ray tube technology. Yeah, K.S. Paul, we don't get to learn about him. We don't get to learn about any of that cathode ray tube technology. A woman operates a Linotron 505 from a cathode ray tube phototypesetting machine in Dresden, 1983. Yeah, that's believable. Look at her face. Do I turn it like this? Am I doing it right? The company, as so many in the printing industry, endured a complex post-war history during which printing technology went through true revolutions, first moving to phototypesetting, then to digital. During the 1950s, the Davidson Corporation, again in red, can't learn about that one, which manufactured a series of small offset presses, was a subsidiary of Linotype. This was later sold to American Type Founders and operated under the name ATF Davidson. Through a series of mergers and reorganizations, the business of Mergenthaler Linotype Company ultimately vested in Linotype Hell AG, a German company. Just seems weird, like why? In April 1997, Linotype Hell AG was acquired by Heidelberger Druckmaschinen AG. The following month, certain divisions of Linotype Hell AG were spun off into new companies, one of which was Linotype Library, we did this already, GmbH, with headquarters in Bad Homburg, Voderhol. Bad Homburg. This new company was responsible solely for the acquisition, creation, and distribution of digital fronts and related software. Gosh, that's amazing. So we just have another huge advancement that only came from one place. This spin-off effectively divorced the company's font software business from the older typesetting business, which was retained by Heidelberg. Why? In 2005, Linotype Library GmbH shortened its name. We read that, blah, blah, blah. In 2023, Monotype announced that it would be closing the Linotype e-commerce platform together with FontShop and Fonts.com. Monotype stated that it could no longer maintain its desired level of quality across the platforms and would instead be focusing on efforts on developing its MyFont site. The company pledged to preserve Linotype's history and legacy online with stories and content. I am no closer to believing any of this than I was when I started. Linotron. Let's see if Linotron even... I'm not going to read anymore, but I just want to see. Nope. Nope. Nothing about the Linotron machine. Why isn't that a thing? Guys, this is fucking crazy. This is crazy. I just can't. This is crazy. Liquid metal machines, huh? 1887. Liquid metal is just something that is like easily handled, manufactured, used. I mean, it's just... What? So what does this have to do with fuck Israel? Everything. Because fuck Israel. You know, we have to destroy their narratives from the top down. And you know, the more you know, the more you're able to question. Like this literally has to do with every piece of information that you've had in any other form, you know, than entertainment, like the entertainment industry. This is the other side of that. You know, I highly suggest everybody gets done here and goes and watches Hollywoodism. Hollywoodism is the smoking gun. If I could have you watch any one thing, learn about, look into any one thing that I've said today, it's that you go watch Hollywoodism. Because they absolutely controlled everything, and they created the America they wanted. And so now you're talking about how they did that with Hollywood. And now this part is how they did it in print. How are they able to print all those school books, all those newspapers, all those magazines that they use to manipulate the people, to manipulate the Goyim? How did they do it? This is how. Supposedly they just invented the machine. Clockmaker. Yeah. German. Always German, man. There's so much of our history, so much of the invention, you know, so much of the progression of us as a society comes from Germans. You know, we're told that the Greeks did this, that, and the other thousands of years ago, but the Greeks don't do shit, and the Greeks haven't done shit in all of history other than this ancient time. It's all German, man. It should be that Germany is like one of the most highly regarded countries in the world, but of course, they've associated it with the Nazis, with the National Socialist Zionist movement. You know that's what Nazi stands for, right? NA is the National Socialist, and ZI is the Zionists. That's what Nazi means. NAZI. It's a J group. And it's them that are literally they're committing genocide while bragging about it through the media they control. And they've always controlled it. That's the thing. They've always controlled it. And I do nothing but tell you guys the truth, man. I do nothing but tell you what they want us to know. If you choose to believe it after the fact, you go right ahead. You learned about diving bells and all that shit today. All that makes sense? We got well through the Thames Tunnel. We didn't get all the way through it. I got distracted. But understand, these piece of shit Jays, like, our lives should all be much better. We have the means, technology, and resources for everyone to live a good life without anyone having to work. Or if you're insisting that people work, well, then everybody can work 3-4 days a week, 3-4 hours at a time. Which would raise production, which would, you know, make people happier, all that shit. Speak for yourself. Who do you think I'm speaking for? You dumb fucker. Like, why do you come on here to be like, I'm stupid? This is the big boy table. Go back and sit at your table. You know, this is the popular kids table. Go back and sit at the table you actually sat at lunch. This is wild, man. And this is what happens when you go looking into anything. I promise you, you guys come up with whatever it is that was supposedly invented, you know, prior to like 1920 or some shit. And you'll find the same goddamn narrative over and over again. This guy is obsessed with the wrong people. Oh, am I? Who are the right people then? If it's not the Jays, who is it? Because I guarantee any name you say is a name we can all talk about all day without ever getting in any trouble. The Jesuits, the Illuminati, I don't fucking know, the New World Order. You want to talk about fantasy nothings? You want to talk about, you know, you want to talk about the real head of the monster. Let's cut the head of the monster off. The billionaires and corporations. Yeah, that's what it is. Well, that doesn't narrow it down at all, does it? That doesn't identify where the problem comes from and then how it's gotten there. Are you saying that all billionaires and all corporations are like that? No. But you don't get to be in that position unless you're willing to do or ignore. The majority of those billionaires, like how BlackRock, go look at all of BlackRock's employees. Go look at the upper levels of BlackRock and see how many of them are Jays. I mean, if you're not on this J tip yet, I don't know what to tell you. Go ahead and tell me something good that they bring the world. You know, all the inventions and shit, that's not them. But saying all the time J's is right? You're dumb, dude. You don't understand what I deal with. Actually, you do because you're part of it. But if I said the word all the time, then when YouTube goes back to review my video because it's frivolously reported, then they would have justification. If you need me to say one word because you can't follow along, again, you're saying way more about you than you are me.
And New York is a sanctuary city.
Blah, 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 blah. Shut up.
That is correct. On your side.
It's hate speech. The hate speech. What's hate speech? So you're saying I'm not allowed to hate things? Why am I not allowed to hate things? Or I'm only allowed to hate the things you say I'm allowed to hate? Can you imagine being such a dumb coward that you have to hide behind something like that? Oh, that's hate speech. That's a hate crime. As opposed to a love crime or a like crime or a happy crime. Yep, it's a hate crime. Of course, hate crimes only occur when they occur to one group of people for some reason. God, you're not very smart. Of course it's okay to hate people. How do you feel about pedos? You a big pedo fan? Do you realize how dumb you are when you've been told that you're not supposed to hate things and you're like, okay, I won't hate things. What are you, stupid? I hate religious cults. I hate all religion. I just hate the one more than the rest. At least the Christians and the Muslims want you to join their group so they can help save your soul and they believe it's good for you and blah. The Jays want you to be a Christian because then you'll believe that Christian gods, the people that killed Christian God's only son and your superhero, the bad guys in the Bible, because it's not Satan, you believe that they are Christian God's favorite chosen people. Love is the point of life, isn't it? Oh, do you love them pedophiles then? Is that what it is? Are you dumb enough that you can't have both? How can you love something and if you don't have hate? And at the end of the day, love and hate are just four-letter words that we use to describe a large range of emotions. We've all agreed that love and hate covers this and that. Even though what you consider hate and what I can, people that I hate broccoli. Oh, I hate this movie. How many people frivolously throw around love? Love you, man. Love you. Oh, I love this ice cream. Oh, I love this. I love that. Just dumb shit. But anybody thinking they can tell you what you hate, you like, anything, that's insane. And okay, I won't hate that anymore. It's awful. It doesn't include me. It actually, holds us all as slavery. They rape children. They eat fucking placentas and foreskins. They cut and suck baby penises. They think women's vaginas are disgusting. They're committing genocide right now, but I shouldn't hate them. I love everybody because I'm like, so you like fucking with kids, huh? So is that it? Oh, of course, Justin. Do you know how many of these fucking dumb bot trolls have been here week after week because they hate me so much? watching hour after hour because they hate me so much. Come on. Where's your proof of any of this? The last fucking 77 plus episodes? Yeah, which part are you not understanding? You don't think there's a genocide happening right now? You don't understand that the Hollywood pedo machine is them? Are you new here? If I had sung something wrong with me, I would. Oh, so you're super selfish, right? If it applies to you, then you give a shit, and you probably want everybody else to give a shit. But when it's just some people you don't know, a whole culture being annihilated, mostly women and children because they've already arrested and taken hostage the majority of the men, that's okay. It doesn't involve you. Yeah. Look at this dumbass. Justin J is just as stupid as they get. And I appreciate it. I can't tell. It's not like I want that guy to go anywhere. You know, this guy provides the example of what I'm always talking about. Stupid, stupid goyim who do as they're told and think like they're supposed to think. It's you dumbasses that make the feed. And it's amazing because, like I say, every time somebody doesn't tell me what I'm wrong about, how I'm wrong, they tell me I'm right. They just, you know, well, you're right about that, but you're a stupid doo-doo head. You know, that's all it is. You're in the minority, blah, 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 blah. Yep. Yep. I'm in the minority who believes there's a genocide happening right now. But then again, I'm also in the minority who actually reads. I know way more about all of this than you do. You're stupid. You are beneath me in this because I've educated myself to degrees you can't even imagine. Which is why instead of actually making any sort of argument against what I'm saying, like how I'm making arguments for what I'm saying, you just keep saying dumb shit. What genocide? Right. Dude, you're dumb. You're fucking dumb. 200,000 plus people killed since October 7th of last year, of 2023, is a genocide. Especially when there's no casualties on the other side. But go ahead. You keep living under your fucking dumb chosen rock. You keep cutting and sucking baby penises, right? That's all good. He cites all his sources and you go back and look at everything up. I'm not saying I agree with him, but I believe... What part am I getting wrong? Arkham, what thing have I gotten wrong? If you've gone and looked any of it up, what thing did I get wrong? All of my sources are cited, and they're always what we're supposed to know. I don't read conspiracy theory. I don't, you know, I go with what we're supposed to know. So tell me what I'm getting wrong. 1990s movies and 50s TV shows don't count. The fuck are you even talking about? Dude, I literally just read you the entire fucking history of linotype machines while also reading the history of the tunnel under the Thames River, and you're just stupid. You're just stupid. And this is what stupid J pedos do. They don't stand against... If you don't stand against pedos, you support pedos, or you are one. And this is just another one of those jackasses who does some pretty horrible shit, I would imagine. So, this was a good one. I have to say this was very educational. As I started off by saying, go look up Team Jorge. Go look up the Samson Option. Team Jorge is the 100% smoking gun proof Israel and the Jays control social media. The Samson Option is 100% proof that they are willing to kill all of us. Operation Cast Thy Bread is 100% proof that the Jays poison wells, drinking water wells. That's one of their methods. And of course, there's Hollywoodism, a movie they produced in 1998 where they brag. And basically, if I say the same things, I'm anti-Semitism and blah, blah. Just think about this. Why do they call everything anti-Semitism? Semitic refers to all of the people of that region. So as much as they think they own everything, they don't own Semitic. Semitic is everyone. Semitism is policy or predisposition favorable to Jays. Policy, laws, and regulations and all that shit. And predisposition, meaning how you go into it, is favorable to Jays. It's supremacy. So anti-Semitism is anti-supremacy. And why anybody wouldn't be opposed to supremacy, I'll never know. I am so proud of my hate, you have no idea. I am proud to hate the slave masters. I am proud to hate the people that believe us all to be goyim. And not just us. Goyim are, us, people, animals, dogs, cats, beds, chairs, windows. Everything that isn't them is goyim. And if you go watch 1998's Hollywoodism, again, this isn't an Alex Jones movie. This isn't any kind of conspiracy thing. This is a movie they put out. They put it out. Bragging about how they have controlled Hollywood since the beginning and continue to. And how they used Hollywood to shape all of our perceptions into what they wanted us to think. Basically, that they are God's chosen people and they are untouchable. And we should be okay with Israel getting $3.8 billion a year to kill people. Dude, I was agreeing with you. No. Nobody, you didn't get attacked. You crybaby. Now you're going to get attacked, you goofy crybaby. You said, I'm not saying I agree with him. So I simply asked you, what do you disagree on? If you think that's an attack, this is definitely not the right feed for you. You're in a corner somewhere. Because that's how this works. When somebody says something, it then gets addressed. So if you claim something, I'm going to address it. Now, I'm done. Y'all have a wonderful day. Go get your free download. Thank you. The link will be in the description, along with a link to Hollywoodism so you can watch it and then tell me everything I'm wrong about. Along with a link to our Facebook page, which if I'm not live here, I'm live on the Facebook page. It's also a link to one of our songs, the Samson Option. So, everybody go check it out. Hey, what do you think we'll find out from JFK Files? I don't think we're going to find out anything other than the Jays want us to know. Trump is the biggest Jay puppet they had. Trump is the greatest friend Israel and the Israeli people have ever known, according to dickhead douchebag Netanyahu. And if you fall for Trump, you're an idiot. Anyway, have a great day. Pedophiles, kill yourself.